OTB AM with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Alright, you're very welcome along. It is a Wednesday morning. We're in the aftermath of a 5-2 thumping for Liverpool at Anfield. We'll get the thoughts from the Liverpool side a little bit later on. We'll talk to Graham tomorrow on the show. But we'd love to hear from you if you're a Liverpool fan, or if you're a fan of other clubs who might have been getting some schadenfreude into you last night. It was hooked to your veins as the 4th and 5th goals were going in. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the League of Ireland. You know, you asked for it. We have responded, and plenty more besides, including statistical analysis of the first two rounds of the Six Nations to see exactly how we're playing. We're going to be giving away the state secrets a little bit later on. In the meantime, Shane is here.
Morning, how are things?
Cameron is here.
Morning, how are things?
Yeah, good. We're going to talk rugby with Cameron in a few minutes' time, and we'll talk to him about the various managerial changes that have come into his life in the last 24 hours. But we've got to start with Liverpool. When it was 2-0 up, Shane, what did you think?
I was thinking, this is one of the great historic Anfield nights. The atmosphere is unbelievable. Liverpool fans are feeling themselves. They're predicting a Champions League victory overall on Twitter. And then shit hit the fan. And then what happened next was still one of the historic nights at Anfield, but for all the wrong reasons for Liverpool fans. I'd say the flights and boats home to Dublin today and Belfast will be fairly sad, considering the amount of Irish fans, no doubt, that went over to that game. Sublime to the ridiculous, I think, was the phrase used by BT in commentary. It just...
Yeah, I mean, it was also unbelievable.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant.
Unbelievable. Like,
from Real Madrid's perspective.
Vinicius, first goal. I think we forget about just all the moments of genius that there were. I mean, in fairness, the opening goal was sensational.
Yeah.
The opening Liverpool goal was absolutely sensational. Like, the brains, he's great when he's on instinct. I was watching the BT coverage, which was really interesting. Like, the phoning over Stevie G was really interesting.
Oh yeah, every first question went to him.
Yeah, and then the second one, you're like, I mean, the two lads will be sitting here going, and then Rio just couldn't explain the goal. He was like, there's a line here and there's a line here, and you're supposed to put people in front of the, like, just do it. And Michael, I was like, that's not off the training ground, that's just opportunistic. I don't know if this is true or not, because, like, there's not a manager in sight. Oh, sorry, Stevie G. I forgot.
Sorry, yes.
Sorry. That was not on purpose. That wasn't a bit.
You managed your own club.
Sorry. Yeah. Black.
So, it was one of those... It was strange. You'd almost forget about that goal. It's a pity now that goal is going to be lost to the annals of history because of the way this tie looks like it's going to go.
The front three looked great for that first 15... Actually, for that whole first half. They looked absolutely great. Like, they looked like they were in it together and they knew what each other was doing, and there was like a nice confluence of skills.
Klopp saying afterwards it was the best they've played all season in that first part, but you still felt that Real were going to do something. Like, it was quite open. Too open in the midfield. After
Vinicius scored, you were like, okay, this is going to be end to end. There's going to be goals. But you didn't think Liverpool were finished. I didn't actually think Liverpool were finished until it was over. Well, like, about 10 minutes ago, you're like, okay, there's just nothing.
No. The fifth goal typified everything that was about that night. Like, Modric just prancing forward with the ball like he wasn't 37?
38?
38 maybe, and then giving it over to Vinicius, sets up Benzema.
37.
I mean, what a finish, what a team goal. And
it's not 38 till September.
Okay. He's got plenty of time. He's only a baba.
Very energetic, Luka Modric. Very high running late in the game. Very impressive.
I know football is quite reactive. A lot of people saying, "Is this the end? Is this the end of this era of Liverpool?" It doesn't always happen in one game at the end of an era, but it feels like that. Well, it's the direction we're headed.
It's the end of the Henderson and Fabinho era, and it's I don't know. Will they sell Virgil in the summer and cash in on somebody and try and recast that defence? I don't know. It didn't look like the end when it was 2-2. Like, you would have said they were right in that game and you would have given them a chance to go to Madrid and do something interesting.
It kind of felt like, when you're playing FIFA and halfway through the game it says, semi-pro seems too easy for you. Do you want to make me take the step up?
Yeah. And they start throwing the controllers.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have been getting you to run the Virgin Games room if the machine is telling you that you're actually too good for the computer, because it certainly hasn't been the case with Nathan so far. So, good morning all. Can we talk about what Henderson was doing for the first goal? Secondly, Modric at 37 burning the entire pool team for the last goal, says G.O.D. Morning all. Haven't tuned in for a while. Good to see Owen back, although looking a bit worse to wear for the travelling, says Chris. Yeah. It's amazing what the iOS will do to you in the high heights of.
Is it the woolly alpaca looking top, is it?
Vinicius Junior is top class. I mean, he's definitely like right up there in terms of world football.
He's unbelievable
at the moment.
Yeah, Ancelotti said afterwards he's up there as, I think he said he's the most decisive player in world football right now. I mean, Marcus Rashford's probably knocking on the door saying, well, what about me? But I mean, Vinicius is just incredible. That goal, that curled goal for the first one, you're like, this is what Vinicius does all the time. He's telling you what he's going to do, and then he does it.
Well, we talked about it yesterday on the show with Mark Lawrence, and it's like, look, there are going to be chances, and at the end of it, it's going to be Vinicius and Benzema, and lo and behold, there's a bit of misfortune. I think if they could have got to the break at 2-1, they might have been able to get in and kind of go, okay, maybe we don't need to be so heavy metal here, lads. But obviously they are full-blown heavy metal, full bore, and there's nothing they can do about it when the game changes. So
what were the goalkeepers doing last night?
Yeah, you felt... did he say Carrius his name too much this week? And now he was like Beetlejuice just hanging over the affair at Anfield. It just, wow.
Like both of them
one
were
was hilarious.
Yeah, which was worse? The Courtois one was probably worse.
I think the Courtois one was worse.
It's like, what are you actually doing? Like, he's usually very, very good at the ball at his feet. Courtois.
Yeah.
And Alisson was just... Yeah.
Somebody had the detail, it might have been Henry Winter, that Courtois has a tattoo of a wall on his arm after the Champions League final with the little big cup with the ears coming out of it. It was looking a little bit like... Here's the thing though, he won the Champions League final with a man of the match performance, and so he's actually entitled to...
Oh yeah, get all the tattoos you want. I'd have 14 tattoos on that.
But I mean, so last night, if it had finished 2-1 last night, he would have been a bit cheapish, but you would still have expected him to come back in the next leg. I don't know, the Alisson thing, like, has something else been broken apart from the midfield? Isn't the only issue. It's obviously a big issue.
It's huge. Fabinho is brutal,
but Alisson is not the same player he was.
Yeah, but that's not a concern.
It is a concern. Everything is like they've all come off collectively at the same time.
You're just angling for Caoimhín Kelleher to get in here. This is what's happening. Alisson's still a very good goalkeeper. Very, very good goalkeeper. I don't think that's, if you're looking at that Liverpool squad in terms of a rebuild, and a rebuild is needed, I don't think the goalkeeping position is. I mean, I'm all for Caoimhín Kelleher getting the number 1 jersey.
It's not going to happen for Kelleher. They view him as a number 2 clearly, and there's even that talk finally of him looking for a move. So we'll see what happens. But if you're a Liverpool fan, we'd love to hear from you this morning. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock for you. Gareth Roberts is going to join us at around about 7:50. Vinny Perth is going to join us in studio 8:05. Kathleen McNamee is in Marbella with the Republic of Ireland women's national team. We're playing China at 1 o'clock today. Derek McNamara is going to give us his thoughts on the opening 2 rounds of the Six Nations. And Around the World is there with at 9:15 this morning. Cameron, you're actually here to talk rugby.
Yeah.
Before we get to the Ireland rugby situation, you had 2 new managers come into your life. You wait for one, and like the Dublin buses, they come together. So as a Leeds fan and a Connacht supporter, or a resident Connacht supporter, you had 2 new head coaching decisions made yesterday.
Well, I mean, I had one brand new one. Pete Wilkins has been head coach of Connacht since earlier this year, since Andy Friend became director of rugby. But yesterday they announced the news that he is taking over permanently as head coach, and they're getting rid of he's going to have total authority over Connacht for the next 3 years. So 3-year deal. He's been there since 2017. First came in as a defence coach, has flourished under Andy Friend. He can't speak highly enough of him. And yeah, it's really, really exciting. Definitely feels like there was a plan in place. He's had time to cut his teeth as a head coach this year. The results have been mixed, but it certainly feels like they're going to give him the space and time he needs to really implement his vision at Connacht.
While the results have been mixed, as in they started badly, they've won their last 3 games, so they're making this announcement in the aftermath of an upswing in fortunes. They're in the top 8 in the table, possibility they might reach the playoffs. The fixture list is pretty friendly towards them, pardon the pun.
Yeah, I mean, those are all positives. I don't know if anybody watched the Zebra game at the weekend, but it did not make for pleasant viewing. Oh my goodness, it was like the tale of Connacht's year, where
Did they not score 50 points?
they did, but they surged out and then they let Zebra get to within 4 points of them. It was 38-34.
Didn't you feel alive? Are you not entertained?
No,
This is what sports all about.
It shouldn't,
come
not
on.
Not Zebra, who haven't won a game in the URC this year. Please, not them. And it's been the tale of the year for Connacht, where first half, great, really gritty performance. Then whatever happens, we wobble, and not in single spies, but in battalions. It just seems like everything seems to go wrong, and like they regained their composure and stretched their legs in the end and managed to see them out. But yeah, being a Connacht fan isn't easy.
No, but sure, look, if life was easy, we'd all be Man United fans, and
I know. I'll tell you what.
we'd all be glory hunting front runners. New
United fans.
England Patriots, Manchester United.
To tell United fans the last 10 years that it's easy to be a United fan.
Yeah, well,
See how you enjoyed it.
Did anybody catch you at the top of the Roll of Honour yet? Oh no, wait, they didn't. Okay, so that's the Connacht thing. We'll obviously come back to that, and we'll try and get Pete on the show, and just be interested to hear what his vision for those next 3 years is. But it's a good sign that they identified this guy a number of years ago. They kept Andy Friend on, obviously, because it looked like he was leaving, and they've managed to transition. And you hope that they've got somebody who knows intimately what the requirements of the job are, and that they haven't made the errors of the past.
You'd imagine this has been known within the squad for quite some time. Like, I know it's been announced now, but surely this has been common knowledge within.
I think the assumption when Andy Friend was going was that he was in the box seat for the job,
Right.
and so obviously he's ticked the correct boxes. But your hottest of hot takes is that we need to be worried significantly about Italy.
Yeah, well, not significantly. I think I've climbed down a little bit, because I did some research last night and went, okay, I oversold this piece just a touch.
Hey. way to hook them in there, Cameron.
I tell you what, if that's not a sell, I don't know what
Let me
is.
tell you what I'm about to tell you. This is like going to be an okay game for us, actually. It's pretty much as you expected.
Actually, there's nothing to worry
routine
about.
10-point victory.
You see, Cameron, if Italy go on and win now, what you have to do here is really go in on Italy. You can't be sitting on the fence. You got to go for it.
No, I'm gonna mention some flashpoints that we should look out for, because I'm going to the game in Rome at the weekend.
Ah,
right.
I
Kept
cannot
that quiet.
Oh,
wait.
yeah.
I can't wait, because I'm obviously Rome is a fantastic city. I will come back, and I probably won't fit in the studio when I come back.
Carbs.
Apart from the food, what's the nightlife like? Have you been before?
I've been, but not when I was a
Haven't been out
nightlife
yet.
going age.
All right, well, that doesn't
apparently it's just nice, quiet bars. There's not really like heavy nightclubs, although like the likelihood is we'll end up in an Irish bar or something at some point. But I'm really looking forward to it. Love sightseeing, really love food, so it's kind of the perfect place to go. But I'm really looking forward to seeing this Italy team in the Stadio Olimpico. Certainly among rugby purists and rugby hipsters, they're probably everybody's second favourite team. I would put them ahead of France now in terms of the way they play, and I enjoy them. And they kind of play with nothing to lose. I think this is going to be kind of like a Fiji November International, where
They'll rip us apart 3 or 4 times.
I think they...
The stats show we only concede 1 try, but for Italy, we will make an exception.
Yeah, I think, give them the benefit of the doubt. They've welcomed
Okay, so
us to their
sell
beautiful
us the
town.
Italian dream.
Well, they've got some fantastic players. They've got one player coming back who I'm really looking forward to seeing in Paolo Garvisi. He missed the first 2 rounds. He's been injured since the end of December, but he's a really interesting player. He plays much more of a kind of swashbuckling Marcus Smith type role for Italy, takes the line. He's played mostly at inside centre for Montpellier this year. If Carberry starts, which I think people are starting to suspect might happen, he's a good stone heavier than Carberry, so be interesting to see him running down his channel. But he will get them ticking. I'd love to see him and Tommaso Allen play together, because I think we've talked about the 10-12 thing, 2 fly halves maybe not working, certainly for England. Italy's an example of a place where that might work, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if he starts and if he has.
It's surely going to be
an
Ross Byrne,
instant
though, right? We don't think it's going to be. Is there a surge for the?
Certainly, that was the chatter online. Is he's in, he must be starting. Which I was like, I don't know about that.
That doesn't make any sense. I don't buy that at all. I think that would be a hugely out of character parachuting in of a player from outside the squad to the starting lineup when Ross Byrne has been in the whole time. So I don't think it's
when the
gonna
whole
be...
talk was like, oh, he's not good enough to get into the squad in the first place, and suddenly he's in. That doesn't really make sense to me. But that was certainly I guess I believe everything I read online. That's the lesson here.
Kids these days.
But how about that Jordan Peterson, eh?
Yeah, it turns out interesting ideas. But no, they've brilliant players across a few different positions. Obviously, we can talk about Ange Capuozzo all day and just the electricity he brings. And Padovani should start with him. It's a pity Montiglioni's gone back to Australia for personal reasons, because that back three would be electric. But Federico Ruzza, who I think Derek McNamara has mentioned in his sort of stats hit for today, he's exceptional. I think he's a brilliant player in the second row. He has the highest win rate or line-out wins in the Six Nations so far at 15. He made 13 tackles against France, 8 against England. He's 4 tries in the URC this year. He's got a 95% tackle rate in the URC.
Okay.
He's brilliant.
So they have enough good players to give us pause for concern, and as you're swilling your red wine and stuffing your face with pizza, you're like, oh, I predicted these were going to be this good.
Oh, I'll be chanting Forza Italia by the end.
Swimming in the Trevi fountain. Running up the Spanish steps.
I don't know, it's a bit gross.
Trevi fountain.
All those coins and all that metal.
Yeah.
I don't know where those coins have been, Shane.
A lot of good wishes in that fountain.
Okay, the other new manager coming into your life is you're a Leeds fan. Were you happy / underwhelmed / like just finally somebody has decided to take us off the market here?
Yeah, I'm happy that we have a manager. It seemed like for a while there we weren't going to have one because it's an awkward time of the year to be looking for a manager. January is very much over. You can't be bringing in players. You're in a relegation scrap. All the managers, Iriola, slotted at Feyenoord, they're all at the back end, the business end of their seasons. They're like, no, we don't want to go to troublesome Leeds. So getting Javi Garcia, I should say, is very encouraging. I think the talk around the club was Skubala was good for the United games, but giving him the few extra when you're like, oh, maybe stay till the end of the season wasn't like the greatest move. So having someone who actually has a vision and a plan and isn't an under-21 coach is a positive step in anyone's book. Be interesting to see what he brings to the club. I know he saved Watford from relegation when he was there, and getting dismissed from Watford I don't think is
no, it happens to everybody.
enough reason. Yeah, happened to Marco Silva. Was Marco Silva Watford?
He was, wasn't he? Feels like he was.
And
he's a perfect man for Watford.
Yeah, he seems like someone who Watford would have taken then said no, and now he's doing really well at Fulham. So I'm looking forward to it. I think Leeds have a brilliant squad. They just need someone to tap into it. I certainly think we're better than West Ham, and it was very disappointing a couple of weeks ago to not get the win against them. But I think we probably have enough. We just need someone proper at the wheel.
Right, so you're happy?
I'm happy.
All round. Good to have a little bit of leadership in your life. And some leadership coming from our commenters this morning. Neil McNamee says, Finnegan's Irish Pub in Rome, lads. There's your recommendation for you.
There we go. That's where we go.
I don't think you should go to an Irish pub in Rome. I think that you should.
No.
You're going to like one of the best food places in the world. You can't be going to an Irish pub.
When I was a kid, I went to McDonald's in Venice. Do you know what I mean? When I think back now, it makes me sick.
Venice is a bit of a shithole.
It is
grim.
Compared to some of the other Italian places. So
like an amusement park.
Hard to find.
The canals have dried up this week.
Have they?
There's
Totally?
a drought, so it looks disgusting.
It's not sinking anymore.
No.
Right, Cameron, good stuff. Thanks for that. A reminder, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. The comments on Liverpool are coming through as well. Oof, a lot of people feeling, as I said, a little bit of schadenfreude about that, but the Liverpool fans not feeling any of that. Liverpool were beaten by a very, very good side. I thought Madrid were excellent. That's kind of the point here, isn't it? That like what might be lost in a lot of this is that it's the World Club champions who have some of the most successful footballers in the history of the game, and some of the best young talent. Whatever about Arsenal having a great collection of young players, Real Madrid's collection of young players is even better.
Not bad, is it? Camavinga in particular, dominating midfield.
Odegaard couldn't get near the team.
It's outrageous. Did you notice Benzema when he was taken off was like muttering something on the bench and was like pointing? He was pointing towards the Liverpool box where he had scored the goals, and it was almost like he was laughing about how easy the chances were. I was trying to gauge what he was saying to the fellow substitutes, but he seemed quite happy coming off the bench and thinking that was easier than we expected.
Well, let's see what it was actually like to be there. Gareth Roberts is with us. Gareth, good morning to you.
Good morning, lads. Okay.
How was the atmosphere at the end? Because we saw at the start it was like one of the all-time great atmospheres for loads of different reasons, and particularly after 15 minutes, it was like, wow, this is absolutely rocking.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be a classic European night, all the way from meeting the bus and all the smoke, the fireworks, the cheers, the shouts, and everything else when Liverpool were driving into the stadium. That really sort of set the scene. And then it really was, the decibels were through the roof for the first, 15, 20 minutes. And obviously Liverpool reciprocated with the performance on the pitch in that time as well. But as you say, by the end, well, as you would imagine, extremely flat. No one's seen Liverpool concede 5 at home in Europe before. Now they have. No one's seen Liverpool take a 2-0 lead and then throw it away and lose 5-2 in Europe, and now they have. And it's not just about the night, obviously, it's about how the season's gone in general. I mean, I've found some of the sort of discussion of fans to be a little bit strange, like, where was the atmosphere? What happened to the support and all this kind of thing? Liverpool fans have watched Liverpool get beat 11 times this season, and that's difficult to take when you were close to a quadruple last season. So, no matter how great of a supporter you are or how great of a fan you are, that hurts, and that's difficult to take, and that's difficult to watch. And, for the team to collapse in the manner that it did, for it to be so flaky defensively, for it to give away daft goals to a world-class side, that is not easy to take, and that is not easy to maintain, the din that greeted the team when they first came out onto the pitch.
The home form has been actually okay, largely, in most of the games. It's that away form where we'd seen that flakiness in defence against very, traditionally mediocre teams, not the powerhouses. But last night you were up against a powerhouse team playing at the peak of their powers, fresh from winning the World Club Championship, and it's like, this is what happens when there is a team full of confidence who comes in and has the technical and tactical ability that Real Madrid have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 9 of the defeats of those 11 that I mentioned are away from home. And as you say, it hasn't been that bad at home. But, it's concerning to lose in that manner. But you've got to give all the credit in the world to Madrid. They are world class. We saw what they did last season. They obviously went on to win it, but also not only going on to win it, but just the fashion that they kept coming back from the dead. And I think Jurgen Klopp said in his press conference before the game that they're a team that, no matter what, just don't seem to be flustered, don't flap. There's the mistake by Courtois, and, he doesn't seem that bothered, and neither do his teammates by that. And there just seemed to be this sort of air of confidence about them, that, including the manager Ancelotti as well, that they'd get back into it, that they'd get chances, even that they'd win the game. And that was how it unfolded. Liverpool, to me, looked like a side that are fraught with emotion. And sometimes that emotion can be used positively. And we saw that at the start of the game. But equally, it can turn on its head very quickly. And we saw that, in the second half. The second half was terrible. I don't think Liverpool have a shot on target until about the 65th minute. And the heads went, that third goal was an absolute killer. And they were all looking at each other, shaking their heads. I think you could hear Henderson have a bit of a pop at Gomez and that kind of thing. And that says to me about the fragility I'm talking about, whereas, Madrid are the absolute opposite of that. They've got this real nous about them. They've got this confidence about them. They're unflappable. Liverpool are very flappable.
Gareth, Jurgen Klopp used the word passive quite a bit in the post-match interviews and press conference, and certainly in midfield, Liverpool in particular were quite passive. I feel like I'm always picking on Fabinho, and I feel like we always are picking on Fabinho at the moment, but he was really, really poor last night.
Was he not good in the first 20 minutes though?
Well,
did it not look like he was? It looked like he was at it last night in a way that I hadn't seen him, and then
went off a cliff.
And there was a drop off. Yeah, there was little flashes. I agree that there was little flashes from Fabinho, of the old Fabinho. There was times where, he was winning the ball. He was even going past a couple of players and things like that. And you thought, well, there's the Fabinho we know and love. The problem is he can't sustain it, and he definitely can't sustain it across 90 minutes. It's the problem for Henderson as well. And I thought as well, for all the praise for Bajcetic, he's only 18 years old. He looks a fantastic player. But it showed up last night that he was 18 years old. It showed up last night that he was playing against someone like Modric, who's nearly 20 years his senior. And, there's a time there where, he's won the ball in midfield, but then he immediately gives it away. It leads to a Madrid goal. On one of the other goals, Modric is walking through the midfield and Bajcetic is trying to get at him. Now, I think even if it was me, and I'm nowhere near that level of a football, I think I would have brought Modric down. Yeah. I think, that was the thing to do in that moment.
Yeah.
And take the booking, absolutely. And he didn't do that. And again, that's just that little bit of experience that's missing. It was a strange game. It's a strange game to even look back on because, anyone who's talking about something like this, you always go back and you take a look at the stats. And I think if you hadn't been in the game and you hadn't watched the game and you look at the stats, you go, it looks like Liverpool have done all right. They've carved out opportunities. They've had shots on target. They've had quality shots as well in terms of, expected goals and things like that. But Liverpool were in it. Second half, it was all about sort of, the quality of Madrid, the nous of Madrid, the brains of Madrid, and Liverpool looked like a team lost.
I think the thing that really brings it home for you, so Liverpool have obviously completely regenerated their front line with the two signings, and everybody's like, they actually needed the help in midfield, and that's true, they did need the help in midfield, but they also needed the help in the forward line. You can't stop. You have to keep regenerating. And when you look at Real Madrid, over the last decade, they've had a midfield trio who have won 5 Champions Leagues in Casemiro, Kroos and Modric. And yet 2 of those 3 weren't playing last night. Obviously, we know Casemiro's at Man United and Toni Kroos comes off for the last 3 or 4 minutes. But it didn't matter because they have constantly, every year, they've bought another midfielder who can learn from those and work with those. And Camavinga's only 20 and it looks like he could be there for another decade. Tchouaméni wasn't playing last night. That's the bit where, for all of Liverpool's strength, the bit that got them over the line in the first place was buying the world-class players, a world-class goalkeeper and a most expensive centre-back that they could get, who both had a massive impact on the team. But then they went away from that a bit and they got fortunate in that a lot of the players they bought really worked out. But that luck seems to have run out, and that seems to be the difference between being, at Real Madrid's level and where Liverpool are at the moment.
Yeah, it does seem that, it's come home to roost a little bit in terms of how Liverpool buy players and what they do in the transfer market. And, we heard from the lesser spotted John Henry about sort of, the idea of selling the club, and it now appears that that's not going to be the case, and maybe a minor investor comes in. He appears to sort of exude some kind of confidence around that, and that there will be money to spend, but we've heard that before, and it's not been the case. And, Liverpool were running around in the bargain basement looking for a centre-half during the COVID season. We saw something similar with a midfielder, and Liverpool signing Artur, who, we've seen in a minor competition for, I think it's 14 minutes or something like that, and that's it. A lot of people could have told Liverpool, I'm sure, that he'd had his worries with injuries and you might not see him on the pitch. So that's not good enough for a club trying to compete at an elite level. And sometimes, of course, we see emotion spill over with Jurgen. Sometimes we see him, come close to the truth. But I think we all know, anyone who talks in football, writes about football, works around football, that, managers are almost politicians and they don't really tell you what goes on behind the scenes. And I'm sure if you could get into Jurgen's smoke-filled room and have a true conversation with him about what he thinks about the whole situation, I'm sure he'd tell you that he doesn't think he's had the backing of the owners in recent years, and that needs to change very, very soon.
I know that Liverpool have been missing some players. You mentioned Artur and Luis Diaz. Thiago is injured as well. Konate, I suppose, Gareth, is the big one. And you look definitely at that right-hand side of that defence. They knew what they were going to come up against Vinicius. He is an unbelievable footballer. But were Trent Alexander-Arnold and Joe Gomez a little bit, I guess, naive last night in how they dealt with him?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's entirely fair. And Joe Gomez in particular had an absolute nightmare. I think his fingerprints are at the scene of the crime for every single goal. And he's obviously hooked on 70-odd minutes. He looked a broken man when he left the pitch. He gives away the free kick that leads to Real Madrid's third. He's obviously unfortunate with the one that comes off him, but at other moments in the game they're just drifting past him. He can obviously, people are pointing saying he can get tighter on Vinicius' goal. I mean, I thought that was a world-class goal personally from inside the stadium.
I agree. I saw the post-match from Rio Ferdinand going, "Oh, you've got to be more aggressive." I'm like, I mean, sometimes if everybody was always perfect in every incident, then it would always be 0-0 and we'd not be watching any of this because we'd be bored senseless. Like, you know, sometimes world-class player does world-class thing right in the bottom corner. You're like, okay, that's pretty good.
Fair enough. Yeah, exactly that. I think with Gomez that, you know, there's a bit of a worry that he's not looked great for some time now. What I don't like is when people sort of wind back and start, you know, using hindsight and saying, well, why was he given a new contract? Well, he was given a new contract because not so long ago, he was the preferred partner for Virgil van Dijk in a very good team. He was tipped to be, you know, one of the best centre-halves in England and all the rest of it. So he's dropped off a cliff, but he's not alone in that. A lot of them have all at the same time. And that's one of the biggest problems that Liverpool face at the moment. You know, they've still got an opportunity to push for top four. You'd have to say that this tie is done and dusted, even with, you know, away goals now not being a thing. The idea that Liverpool go to the Bernabeu and score at least 3 and don't concede any, you can't really see that. I mean, that would be, you know, above Istanbul and above Barcelona in terms of miracle comebacks, I think. So I'm sure they'll go there and do the bit, but you really can't see Liverpool getting through. So it's all going to be about the league, about trying to get top four. But how much does this knock the stuffing out of them now? They've got to recover quickly. They got Crystal Palace at the weekend, quickly followed by Wolves, Man United and Bournemouth before they play Real Madrid again. And, you know, things could go wrong fast, but equally, you know, they can turn it around. I mean, that first 15, 20 minutes, you know, they score a goal of quality. They're obviously gifted another one. But, you know, that intensity was there. And, you know, you mentioned before about, you know, Fabinho looking like his old self in that time. You know, Henderson was okay, and they all were. But then very quickly, you know, the confidence is clearly fragile. Physically, can enough of the good players do 90 minutes? We're getting players back as well, but I thought even that, you know, we've all been bigging that up. And of course you do, it's what you do as a supporter. But you saw when Firmino and Jota came on that they looked rusty, that they were miscontrolling balls in the box, that ordinarily they would bring down and get a shot off and things like that. So, you know, it's not quite the stick and plaster that we need yet. We've got to play them back into form. And the problem is we haven't really, we're running out of missteps, really. You know, we can't afford many more. Liverpool, you know, are going to have to be close to perfect to be getting top four this season.
Yeah, they need title-winning form, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we say that, but there's a bit of a swoon happening at Newcastle at the moment. And if, for example, they were to lose the cup final at the weekend, or maybe if they were to win the cup final at the weekend, either way there could be a hangover from that. So flaky Spurs, not guaranteeing that they're going to finish in the top four either. So there's a window of opportunity for them when it comes to that, but all of a sudden we're talking about that being the whole season from Liverpool's perspective. One of our commenters says, yesterday morning Real were a poorer team than last season, but now they're outstanding, Powell74. I guess that is the point though. We were talking about their league form with Graham Hunter last week, and it's not great, but they did go away and win a World Club Championship in Morocco, and they did seem to have like good bonding time, and then they come back and all of a sudden it's the last 16 of the Champions League, and this is their tournament. So it's not massively surprising that they're able to pull out a top quality performance. I'm not guaranteeing that they're going to go and win the tournament after this, but you wouldn't be in any way surprised if they were to play 8 more good games this season, finish second in La Liga, and at the end of the year, as is traditional, you know, at the end of the season, Real Madrid pick up the Champions League.
They've shown last night, didn't they, that they've got enough quality to do that. They've got players there that can hurt any side in the world. You know, and amazing in a way to see sort of Modric and Benzema at 37 and 35 still being at the level they are. You know, Benzema looks like he's just playing football with a cigar in his mouth, and you know, the one that he puts in the top corner where he's gone around Alisson. There's 2 players on the line. You know, despite all that, you knew where it was ending up. You know, as you were watching it unfold, he's absolute class. Modric as well. So yeah, you wouldn't bank against them. And I wasn't one, to be honest. That was like, I thought in a home leg at Anfield, I knew all the stuff that we saw unfold would unfold. I knew the atmosphere would be brilliant. I knew the fans would be up for it. I knew Liverpool would start with that intensity, and I hoped that would be enough. But I wasn't completely convinced about this idea that, you know, Madrid was shot. They'd only lost 5 games all season, all comps. Liverpool, as I say, had lost 10. And that tells you where the 2 clubs are at. So it was always a bit of a I mean, I looked at the odds before the game, and Liverpool were slight favourites to win at Anfield, but Madrid were the favourites to go through. And I think that sort of told you where the two clubs were at, and it's unfolded in the worst way possible for Liverpool, obviously.
I know we focus on the Liverpool midfield a lot, Gareth, when they lose games, but on BT last night, I think it was Stephen Gerrard making the point that Real just have players who can take the sting out of the game and in the middle of the park, and Camavinga being one of them. Modric obviously can do that. Is that what Liverpool need? Because in years gone by, when they were having all that success, like Henderson could do that, players in the middle were constantly doing that for Liverpool, but they just cannot take the sting out of a game at the moment, because at 2-0 up, that's exactly what they needed.
Yeah, and that is a problem, and that's been a long-term problem. I think the idea of bringing in Thiago was to do exactly that. I remember Pep Linders talking a couple of seasons back about sort of a plan B, if you like, because there was talk about Liverpool being found out, and he was saying, well, we've got something up our sleeves. Well, when you put two and two together about what the time of that interview and what followed, it appeared to be that the plan was Thiago, someone who can put the foot on the ball, take the sting out of a game, that kind of thing. But Thiago's been in the side. He's been at the scene of the crime for some of these defeats as well, unfortunately. So this season, he's not proven to be the answer either. I mean, we keep going back, and every time I come on here to talk about it, the fact that Liverpool played every possible game last season. I know Klopp said in his press conference, when are we going to stop referencing that? But it appears to be one of the many problems. That's a problem, fatigue, mental and physically. The injuries are a problem. We mentioned transfers earlier, and that's sort of Liverpool have knocked off in terms of going for top players, and the missing out on players. And maybe, we'll never fully know what got said about transfers and budgets and things like that, but it does seem a little bit like, well, you wanted Tchouaméni but you didn't get him, there wasn't a plan B for a midfielder, well, we'll just go and buy a forward then, but we still need that midfielder. And what was telling for me watching that from the stands yesterday was, I absolutely do not want to get stuck into Bajcetic at all. I think he's done brilliantly to come in at that age and perform at the level he has. What was more telling for me was Naby Keita running up and down the touchline. You paid an awful lot of money for him. He's not paid it back, and he's going to leave for nothing in the summer, alongside probably Milner, probably Oxlade-Chamberlain. A lot of money needs to be spent on that Liverpool midfield this summer, so it's all eyes on the owners.
There was a period of time where Liverpool's dealing in the transfer window was so brilliant that they were getting money for players who were essentially squad players, and whatever happened over the last 18 months or maybe even 3 seasons, they haven't been able to recoup that money, and as a result the investment has been massive headline investment, but not enough of the Andy Robertsons coming through who are able to influence the team. And look, it's obviously it's a jigsaw of reasons why last night happened. I think that the main thing is that confidence and the brittleness, and that ultimately ended up coming back a bit to Klopp. He knew what resources he had at the start of the season, and it's fair to say that they've been underperforming in these games. So he keeps saying he has the hunger for the rebuild, the manic smile as the 3rd, 4th and 5th goals go in last night. It doesn't change, and I'm sure it'll be his greatest achievement if he manages to get them back to win a title or to win a Champions League. So what's your instinct, Gareth? Do you think he is here for the medium term at least?
I think so, yeah. I think, he has got the absolute faith and trust of the owners. The owners don't appear to be going anywhere, as I said before. I think the majority of fans, despite what you may hear on phone-ins, etc., are right behind Klopp as well. I think there's a recognition all around that, the team obviously needs rebuilding, there's money needs spending, and that, there's going to be a little bit of a period of transition. But, I, for one, I'm right behind the manager. I think he'll stay. He's the man I want there to do a rebuild. I think if you get someone else in, you're talking about not just one person, but a whole team of people. And then you have the whole dynamic of, well, what players who are at the club get on with the new manager and what players don't, and that can make a transition even worse. I'd be sticking with him, and I think he wants to stick with him. All
right, Gareth, great to have you with us this morning. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Thank you.
It's Gareth Roberts. Not easy coming on the morning after a crushing defeat like that.
No.
Bohemian 29 says, I was at the game last night. Fabinho's shot. Trent finds himself out of position all the time. Gomez is too casual at times. I mean, Trent was pretty good in the first 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, but Trent has been a problem all season, hasn't he? Unbelievable attacking player. Maybe not this season as much as he was in previous years, but his defensive capabilities are just not there.
Is Trent's attacking ability enough reason to carry him? His defending is shocking level. You're nearly 1-0 down with him there. Sometimes he does amazing up top, but is it enough? He's basically James Prowse-Ward playing fullback. James Ward-Prowse like, what do I have to do? How many goals do I have to score in free kicks before you get my name right?
I know.
I should get your name right too. ML89 for that one. 10 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTB AM. We're live each morning in association with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. A reminder too, Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of Off the Ball. Braeburn Coffee is coming to an Apple Green store near you with the new Braeburn locations popping up every month. Visit applegreenstores.com/Braeburn to find your nearest Braeburn coffee experience. We're off to sunny Marbella to check in on the Ireland women's team next. But first, Kenny Cunningham talking pancake goodness.
Sugar?
No.
Lemon?
No, I'm not a big...
Nutella?
The sugar, I don't get the sugar. The sprinkle, just the raw sugar on the pancake. No, I don't.
But you have a sweet tooth.
Oh boy, I do, funnily
Every
enough.
time I see you, you're eating chocolate.
I do, yeah. No, probably a bit of... Have you jam in there? Anything in the cupboard?
Oh yeah, loads. You want strawberry, raspberry, you name it.
Is that right? Let's do it, the ad break.
Jam. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, lemon and sugar I never bought into with the pancakes.
I couldn't tell you the last time I had a pancake. On Pancake Tuesday.
See a lot of them now, breakfast.
It's them in here, Rich, you know that way.
See a lot of them breakfast now, people out with breakfast, Rich, and I've generally traditional Irish or whatever, you have a breakfast. Nowadays, a lot of pancakes getting served up, I've noticed.
For brunch.
Around Dublin. For breakfast.
Yeah. Is that like a crepe thing? Breakfast.
It's crap, you're right, having bloody pancakes for breakfast, there's no doubt of it. I'd never consider a pancake before 12 o'clock.
Is that a rule, yeah?
It's absolute given.
It's 12 o'clock somewhere.
Pancakes for breakfast, never.
Watch OTB AM live every weekday morning from 7:30 on YouTube. Just subscribe to the Off the Ball channel so you don't miss a thing. Off the Ball.
How much bigger is Celtic than Leeds?
A lot. Wow.
Are you having that, Cameron?
Not at all, no. I would say
Really?
we're probably about the same, like,
No
given the
chance,
historic.
Cameron.
Really?
What?
I'm glad I'm in between the two of you here.
No, I respect Leeds, I absolutely do, but no, I wouldn't think that
All
they
the history.
are on the
We've
same
years
level.
and years of history.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, you're very welcome back. Kathleen McNamee is in Marbella. A tough sledding for you this week, Kathleen. How are you?
Yeah, it's a challenge, guys. But I'm getting through as best I can.
What's the weather like?
So yesterday apparently was the first sunny day, and that's when I arrived. And it was like 22 degrees.
Oh, it's tough, isn't it?
Today is supposed to hit about 25. So yeah.
This is like all...
I did get a little sunburnt yesterday, but I also get sunburnt in Dublin on a cloudy day, so that's not really saying much.
This is the women's version of Saipan, where they're going for, warm weather training, conditioning, making sure that the team is all bonded and gelled together. So far so good from an organisational perspective. Nothing happening that we need to be aware of.
No, not from what I've seen. The team seemed very happy. They were complaining a bit that the weather wasn't all that nice up until yesterday, but apart from that, they just all seem like they're enjoying the camp. No one seems all that stressed out. I tried to joke with Vera Powell that maybe she just enjoyed Marbella because it's the second time they've been here, that she'd like to go down to the beach for a little cocktail, but she wasn't having any of that. So
it is serious business. They played behind closed doors, I think, or certainly an uncapped game against Germany already, and then China today is proper caps.
Yeah, so they played an uncapped game against Germany. It was kind of weirdly split, like it wasn't a proper 45 minutes, 11 versus 11. They kind of split it into thirds, and it was basically just a run out for the entire team. I talked to Vera Powell yesterday, and she was just saying that for her, it's really important to come to one of these camps and not just have the team playing each other because the camp's 10 days long. So ahead of this game, she wanted them to have proper opponents. There was very little that came out about that game. They kept it very closed because they just wanted to do, I suppose, like see how the team gelled with the new players that are there. Even yesterday, I stayed for the training session, and about halfway through, they started playing a game, and I was kicked out because Vera Powell didn't want people watching her tactics. So yeah, today they'll play China in a proper friendly, which people can watch, follow like off the ball. There'll be updates from me there, or you can watch it on RTE as well. And it'll be interesting to see how she plays the team, because from what I could see yesterday, they were doing a lot of work of getting the defenders to play out from the back, and it's something that we've long said that for this Irish team we want them to do a little bit more of. So I'll be very interested to see how they actually line out.
The advantage of being there, Kathleen, is you get to almost press the red button and follow a player in training as you please, and you've been keeping an eye in particular on some individuals, Aoife Mannion being one of them.
Yeah, Aoife Mannion was really interesting because I've watched her a little bit in the WSL, but obviously she's been out for the last while with an ACL injury and hasn't really played all that much for United since she came back. And she looked sharp. I was quite impressed when I saw her in training yesterday. You know, she was one of the players that I noticed particularly that was kind of taking on that role of defending and then trying to play the ball up forward to the likes of like Denise O'Sullivan, Heather Payne. And I feel like she could be a really interesting addition. When I did my power rankings the other week, she was one of the players that I thought could maybe sneak into the squad. So I would love to see her get a cap today and just actually see how she does in that sort of match day situation.
Katie McCabe's wearing a bit of strapping. Is that a concern or just a precaution, or do we know?
So the entire team is fit. The strapping, she got a dead leg, so it was more of a precaution than anything else. She wasn't wearing it yesterday when I saw her, and then she was wearing it for the game that they played just against each other. Like, it was just kind of a 5v5. But she said just when she's in those sort of match situations, she just feels more comfortable wearing it. So I think it's just nothing to worry about at the moment.
How many people are actually in this group at the moment, and how many of them won't then therefore make the actual plane to go to the World Cup?
So this is a squad of 33, and then there's only 23 going to the actual World Cup. And the interesting thing with this is that when you consider goalkeepers in that as well, you're only looking at a squad of actually 20 players that are going to be playing, and plus there'll be a couple of reserves there, but they won't actually be on the plane. They'll have to fly over to Australia. Well, I'm sure they'll probably set themselves up there, but technically they won't be allowed on the official roster because FIFA said that they weren't going to allow squads of 26 players, which the majority of coaches wanted. So it's going to be really tough. And like, it was funny just watching all the players yesterday. You know, they're all getting on really well. They're all chatting, having a laugh, and looking, being like, at least 10 of you aren't going. And the thing is as well, there was a bit of talk around the place that there might be even more players that are going to join that aren't already in the Irish squad. So it's an interesting dynamic. All the players are very much like, yeah, no, we're delighted. All the new people coming in are great. They're lovely. And I'm sure they are. But you can imagine if you were in that situation, you'd feel a little bit on edge about who might be coming in or who might take your place.
Yeah, you've got to be very careful about upsetting the squad who have fought tooth and nail to get to this point, and then dropping a quarter of them for people who have suddenly discovered that they want to play for the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah, and I think Vera has talked about this quite a lot and said that, you know, it's for her, it's obviously really important, and that squad deserves to be recognised, the fact that they qualified. But she is also very firm on the fact that I want to bring the best squad that's going to actually win matches and do well there. And I think even when you see the sort of opposition that she's set up for the next couple of months, there will be another team announced tomorrow about who they're playing. So I don't think she has loyalties, obviously, but I don't think she is also like absolute in those loyalties, and she is happy to bring people in if she thinks they'll win.
And presumably the players who were the best players are like, well, if it's going to improve the team, I don't really care, and we'll make friends, but we want to go and do as best we can. So that's the kind of cutthroat nature of high-end elite sport. The contract conversation keeps coming up and then getting pushed to one side. Is there anything bubbling in the air about whether or not Vera Pauw will still be our manager after the World Cup?
Not really. She was kind of, when she was asked about it yesterday, she just brushed it off and said that her main focus is the World Cup and that she doesn't really want to think about anything beyond that. I would be surprised if she stays on, if I'm honest, because she's always said that this would be a short-term thing, and I think she's probably already staying on a little longer than she intended to. You know, she said for a long time that she wanted to get out of coaching. Maybe the Irish situation has given her the bug and she's going to stay around for a bit longer, but I don't know. I have a feeling that this isn't a long-term thing for her.
I guess there is a lot of focus, Kathleen, naturally on these Irish eligible players that have come in, Della Harp and Mannion, Marissa Shiva as well. It sounded yesterday from listening to Vera that she was considering another recruit potentially in the next camp in April. Like, clearly she's leaving no stone unturned in terms of a World Cup squad and players that could come in.
Yeah, like even I asked her about, so Australia are playing England in Wembley in April, and I was like, are you going to be sending scouts over to that? And she kind of laughed at me, and she was like, I have scouts in games all the time, like across Europe. My team is always looking for either new players or looking at how the team, like the likes of Canada or Australia, how they're faring, who we're going to be facing. So and this is something Vera Pauw has always been very adamant on, is that she relies a lot on her team and she trusts her team to bring that information back to her. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few more players there. Like, there was kind of rumours yesterday that there might be another one coming into the April camp. But Vera was very adamant that she wasn't talking about it. So I didn't get any dirt on who it may or may not be.
Okay, so no names just yet. Let's talk about Megan Connolly. We're going to play this interview a little bit later, but we're going to play a clip of it in just a moment. How important is she to the team? And obviously, how glad is she to be back now playing at this level?
She's really important. I mean, she's been one of our best players throughout the qualification process. And you look at that game versus Finland, like, she was absolutely essential. And really interestingly, in that game yesterday, she was like all over the place in terms of positioning. Like, she was at centre back and we asked her about it and she was like, yeah, it's not really my preferred position. You know, I kind of prefer the midfield or on the wings, but I'll play wherever I'll play. But you look at that game against Finland, she played that game after her rib had punctured her kidney and she just played on. Didn't realise it at the time. Said, like, initially whenever I got hit, I was like, oh, that's sore. But the adrenaline just carried you through and she was like jumping around the pitch. And then it was only like a couple of hours later when she was kind of on her own and she said she was like passing blood. She kind of realised something was wrong. And a photo went up the next day on Twitter of her sitting in hospital with McDonald's being like, I'm okay, but I'm out for 10 weeks. And so that was really, she said that was really difficult for her because obviously she missed the Scotland game. She had to watch it at home with her parents, but she had a scan the next day. And I think that was kind of a couple of weeks out from her returning. And she just saw that as like, okay, right, I'm just going to enjoy this for what it is. I'm going to enjoy the fact I'm with my parents and I'm celebrating Ireland going to a World Cup. And I know I will come back and I will be better from it.
Okay. And China, should we beat them?
I don't know if we will beat them. Like, they're higher in the rankings than us. They have like a great history. In the 90s, they came second in the World Cup and in the Olympics. A lot of the team are based over in China. There's only a couple of players playing in Europe. So I think it'll be really interesting. They're a very technical side, which isn't necessarily something we come up against a lot and do all that well against, but I think it'll be a very good training for the World Cup. All
right, Kathleen, good stuff. Enjoy the sunshine and the game, of course, and all the work that you're doing in sunny Marbella.
Thanks, guys.
Not a spot for gangsters and socialites. Right.
Yeah, I don't know which one of those I fall into, but
there you go. More from Kathleen, of course, across the day on Off the Ball social channels and also on tomorrow's show as well. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here is a bit of that chat with Megan Connolly in Marbella. We'll play you the full interview a little bit later on in the show. Vinny Perth up next.
It was one of those ones that I accepted quite quick because it was a bone and an organ that I couldn't, and we had won the game, so it was worth it, and we had got to that position. I think it was a lot easier to just accept it, especially the campaign we had. I think it was something to be really proud of, and I think obviously the last two games, the game before the Scotland one, to secure that if we actually beat Scotland and results went the way that we would have went. But yeah, I think when I was at home, because that was about the 6-week kind of mark for me, so I had a scan the next day. So I was like, right, I'm just going to spend it with my family, which was tough because, emotions are everywhere. My dad was watching it, everyone was watching it. But honestly, it was like, I wouldn't change it. Like, experience it with my family who have been there throughout everything. And just seeing their reactions as well was nice. I know that was my brother. I didn't know he was doing it. It was like, honestly, since Amber scored, it was the longest time ever. And I was just sitting on the edge of the seat, just like, and then you can hear my dad like cheering in the background, like, we're going to a World Cup. So yeah, I think it was just like everyone was just so proud.
That's Megan Connolly speaking with Kathleen. It's 8:24. Vinny Perth is with us. Vinny, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, all good.
I want to talk to you about the opening round of the League of Ireland, but a bit more generally, kind of following up on some of the stuff you were talking to Nathan about last Thursday. There was a presentation given yesterday by the new League of Ireland Academy manager. I want to get the job title exactly correct. Richard was also in the papers today. Richard Dunn talking about how he wants to be a manager. I'm like, you guys putting together some kind of dream team ticket, are you? Is that going to break some news for us this morning?
We were out at Ireland under 15 development squad played on Sunday. Actually, Two was out watching it in the AUL, so it came up for a discussion again. So it's up to him to get a job somewhere, and I'll follow in suit.
This is like Rafa Benitez popping his head up in the papers. Richard's doing the same thing.
No, it's a bit different, in fairness.
Yeah, but that's the gig, isn't it? You put yourself out there, and then 100%. The jobs are meant to follow. Yeah, so.
So Will Clark, the LOI's Academy coordinator, yesterday was giving a presentation talking about what they're doing. Look, I know the conversation comes around, and there's a lot of we're miles and miles and miles and miles behind, and that's true, right? I accept that. You made the point about Luton Town and the number of employees that they have for their academy far outstrips the entire country here. But at least the beginning of something is happening with this survey that they're doing and the certification of all of the underage teams. Yeah. It's work that should have done. Best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time's today. We're planting a lot of saplings.
Yeah, no, I think there's a huge amount of heavy lifting being done, and anyone that knows anything about League of Ireland football will speak. Like, they talk about bringing in, say, over the years it's always been bring Brian Kerr into the FEI, and they were all legitimate arguments, but someone like Will Clark, who the success St. Joey's have had over the last 10-15 years, Will has been right middle centre of that. So to bring someone in with that experience who has helped so many young players move to the UK right in the middle of the FEI is really good, and it's gone under the radar, appointment like Will, for argument's sake. So that's a really positive step. I suppose when you do things like where we ended up in the discussion last week was the amount of feedback I've had as a result of has been huge. A lot of positive, but always people have you sort of left this out, you got this little bit wrong, that bit wrong. But I'm okay with that. I'll have big broad shoulders, I'll take that. At least we're having discussions and we're moving on a little bit. And I think yesterday's announcement is another sign, of yes, we're starting to make progress.
Normally we have these conversations after we've been beaten 3 or 4-0 or 5-1 by Denmark and go, what's the problem? Why can't the league produce players? And it's better if we start having them on the basis of full houses at most of the grounds in the opening weekend of the league, the news coming through that 1 million tickets are going to be sold, but still no overarching presentation, nobody from the FAI going, this is great, everybody come on, give us more money, government. Because Charlotte Burns was in here last week on the GAA deserves more money from the government.
Yeah, and I think we could probably do with the FEI hierarchy being a little bit louder. I would say it's not really my responsibility to fall out with a couple of people and get a few text messages, and there's a certain amount of people within the FEI who made contact to say you were absolutely spot on. More people outside the FEI should be saying it. So I suppose, like, I made a huge amount of points and some people have made a lot of points back, but I think the key is we're doing really well despite what we have. That's the key.
And as a matter of interest, when people are being a little bit defensive or when they're saying you're doing, what are the points of discourse that they're going, actually we need to talk about this?
Yeah, well, like, take the comment I made about Evan Ferguson. Like, it's very easy for someone, say, associate or a fan of Bows to go, what's he talking about? You know, we developed Evan through Kevin's blah blah. Yes, done an unbelievable job, and no League of Ireland team will ever be able to replicate what Brighton have, I would say, probably in their lifetime, because it is 7-star hotel stuff what they have, the training grounds, all that stuff. But I still go back to probably the best training ground in this country is now potentially Bowls in terms of DCU. That facility they have will be very good, but the shining light is Shamrock Rovers, done amazing work out in Roadstone. But by and large, you've got a gym inside an indoor hall. You've got an AstroTurf and one grass pitch between the whole club. that has to change for us to make our young players better. They've done amazing work. Shane Robinson done amazing work. We all hear of Shamrock Rovers. They are now become sexy for people outside of the League of Ireland. You know, the League of Ireland sort of family. There's starting to be more people go, and until we make our facilities better, then we're going to have a ceiling, and we have to realise that. And that's my argument about underage football and even first team football breaking the ceiling.
The flight over to England, Vinny, was part and parcel of a development of a young player, 10, 20, 30 years ago from Ireland, but is becoming more of an option now to stay here and develop and kind of play into your mid to late 20s in Ireland?
No, it's not an option. It's you've no choice. That's the problem. So I would say to you that, and I'll openly admit this, if I had a son who was 14, 15, 16 now, who was an outstanding footballer, and listen, remember, you never know how they're going to develop, I would consider moving to England as to give that child.
You'd be like Federico Makeda, the dad, working in the ground at.
Yeah. But like, what's the point in denying it? I would.
Okay, right.
I would, yeah. Okay. Because to get to the very next level, depending on where that child is, and I don't like using Evan because actually very close to his family, but I use it as the example to say next month or a couple of weeks' time against France, he's most likely going to play a huge part in it under current rules. And you're talking about the very elite players. He'll only be over in the UK 4-5 weeks. He wouldn't be ready to play a senior international. Just wouldn't.
Is it the level of coaching? Is it facilities? Is it everything that's better over there?
No, it's not just coaching, but it's the whole package. I've an example of a young kid who is injured at the moment in a League of Ireland setup, and I'll be very loose with this information, but I can stand over it. Who is injured, and he's seen a physio twice in 6 weeks. You're at any sort of academy in the UK, you're with a physio every day. If you're injured, you're at, and all of that stuff has to improve. But I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. Like I sat in Richmond Park, and it was brilliant on Friday night. Sold out venue, two really good sides going for each other. I'm saying we're there if we can just break the ceiling, and it's not going to happen overnight. Not going to turn up with loads of pitches today or tomorrow, but there has to be a real serious argument about how do we link everything together now. And to be fair, that was the start of it. Will has made his announcement yesterday alongside Richard Dunn, so hopefully that's the start of people asking questions.
The Evan Ferguson point, any idea how they managed to get him through?
Well, he was probably the last one that then the Brexit rules obviously
kicked in
and
afterwards.
FIFA rules kicked in.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any argument that if Evan Ferguson had stayed in the League of Ireland, at 16 he would have been first team, at 17 he would have broken all the scoring records, and at 18 he would have moved, and there would have been a clamour for him to be in the squad? But I accept the point that he,
Yeah. Yeah, who knows?
But then look, we're talking about the outlier as opposed to...
Yeah, who knows? And I'm just making the point that
he would just have moved over.
He would just have moved over. We don't know is the honest answer, and it's probably lazy comment by me, and it's easy to throw that out, but
it's a fairly stark reminder that the rules as they're set up at the moment are he's going to be the last of those.
And there was too many kids going away at 13, 14, and we've all done, anyone that's played has done the trials. I was away myself for 2 weeks as a young kid, didn't like it, all of that stuff. We've all done that stuff, but we have to get a happy medium here, and we have needed English football to help us. I've always made the argument that we have to stop using that as barometer, but at the same time we've needed English football to help us for our national team, and we shouldn't forget that.
That point that Jeremy makes about Jonathan Burns being in here last week, the GA president-elect, like, are the GA vocal enough in terms of lobbying for money from the Irish government compared to rugby and the GA? Because certainly rugby and GA in Ireland make no bones about looking for money and resources, and why wouldn't they? But should the League of Ireland be doing the same? Yeah,
they should be. Like, League of Ireland has been, I suppose, what the problem child for the FAI for a long, long time. It's now not, to be fair. My concern is that the League of Ireland people have to keep fighting within the corridors of the FAI not to become the problem child again. Okay, there's a bit of a, I think it's important. That's why I think a lot of League of Ireland fans will root for Stephen Kenny over the next year and 12 months, because I think it's important that we don't lose our seat at the top table in terms of what we mean, and it doesn't become association again around the first team of the senior and the women's teams. It becomes association for Irish football. So I think it's really, really important that gap is bridged, and there's a League of Ireland voice at the top table. So because ultimately we need it. We're starting now to see a huge amount of players moving to the UK. The pool and the depth of the players over in the UK is huge.
Yeah, you actually put together a team of players who've moved over to England and Scotland. How recently is this?
So it started in the last 12-18 months, and that's part of in many ways our success is now starting to potentially hurt the league. There's a lot of players now coming in on loan from the UK. I've seen 3 players sign yesterday from the UK on loan. We've a real shortage of players in League of Ireland now, which is a flip side of a huge amount of players going to League 1, League 2.
Yeah,
we've a real shortage, and we see. I don't like being negative. As I said, I was at an amazing game the other day. It's very easy to sit here and say everything's great, everything's brilliant, the product is brilliant, but now every club, I mean, you look at Sligo, there's 4 or 5 people from all different parts of the world. That was never the case. And while we welcome it and it's good to bring new players into the league, we've all done it. We're probably short of Irish-based players now to come into the next team.
Okay, so that's kind of an unintended consequence of players reaching a certain level where they're cheap to League 2 and SPL teams, and they're getting hoovered up, and then their players to replace them aren't just there yet.
No, it's just not there yet, and that seems to be a big problem. We've got down in Waterford, we've got Fleetwood who bought Waterford, and they've started to use it to an extent as a bit of a feeder club, giving some of their young players an opportunity. They've also, they've signed Phoenix Patterson so last week in League 1, Phoenix Patterson crosses and Promise Cherry scores a header. Fleetwood win the game 1-0. That's a Waterford player and a Bohemians player. Up until 5 years ago, very few of them players went away. And the team, or the sort of squad I put together, and I'm probably missing 1 or 2 have gone away. But the highlight sort of a League of Ireland problem for a second is so many of these players, up until I would say 5 years ago, wouldn't have went away. It would have been a rare exception. A guy went to a League 1, League 2 or a Championship club. But we've lost a full squad. That's potentially a league winning squad.
That's a strong team there, isn't it?
Yeah, like that. For me, that team could probably win a league. So therefore, is there enough competition in a league will be our challenge over the next year or two.
Okay. So in goals, it's McGinty from Sligo, it's Cotter of Pats, Liam Scales, McNally of Pats, and Lyons of Rovers. That's your back 4. Doesn't avoid Bowes, Ross Tierney of Bowes, Danny Mandria of Rovers is your midfield 3.
Yeah.
Georgie Kelly coming off the bench last night. Promise Cherry and Patterson.
Yeah, so even on the bench you've got Kevin Phillips from Drogheda, who went to Crystal Palace, making huge strides there, young boy. Kieran Kelly is gone into League 2. So I'm saying that team would be top 2, that squad, and we never used to lose them. So someone like James Brown left Drogheda, went straight to Blackburn. Back 4 or 5 years ago, he would have ended up at a Dundalk or a Bohemians or a Rovers or a Derry, and a lot of clubs are missing that now. So you see Derry bringing in young O'Neill from Fulham on loan because they needed players in their squad, and we're having to go outside of the Irish market. There's a real shortage of quality on the way.
Is there a supply and demand issue then? Do the league do the clubs start to look to, it's obviously cheaper for them to have players coming through their own system, and it's more beneficial for them, instead of taking somebody from loan on Fulham, if you can get a player of similar quality through your own system, they play for a season or 2, hopefully you give them a 3-year contract, and in the middle of that they get sent over and they get the transfer. So is this a teething problem, or is it a long-term structural issue that can be fixed?
Time will tell. I feel it's probably a long-term issue, that the gap between under-19 football to first-team football is quite big. We've also seen on this point here, I don't know. I've met Fleetwood's CEO a couple of times, and really good people. I've been in their club, and I've never discussed Waterford with them. It was for different reasons. We're over there looking at them, but it looks like we may have another championship club on in the League of Ireland club over the next week or two as well.
Hull City.
So,
is there something to that story, do you think?
Well, there seems to be something in the story, yeah. And to what level, to what extent, I don't know. But the point I make about that is we could have like a championship club and a League One club owned in 2 League of Ireland clubs. We have to question that. Is that designed to get around the Brexit? Is that designed to get about young players from huge amount of young players from Ireland have real value in the UK now, and we're seeing that with the squad I just put up. We have to question, is that a way of them getting them players over on small amount of money, or is it a way of the bar to get a guy from Estonia now or Latvia or anywhere into English football is really high in terms of the criteria that's needed. He probably needs to play X amount of international games.
Okay. Whereas if they come to Ireland and play for a season or two, they might get.
So the criteria is based around appearances in a top level of, or in a sort of in your league. So if you played over 50% of the games in Irish football, may meet the criteria in England, etc., etc. So it's all different criteria in the UK. So it's just an opportunity for them. We've seen it with like Man City buying a club in Belgium. This is just a smaller version of it happening here in Ireland. And there could be benefits too as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a complex situation where so the two lads are obviously overscoring, and we'll benefit from that if they get up a level and play in the Championship next season and hopefully make it to the Premier League in 2 or 3 years. And suddenly it's like, oh, that pathway where they've come through is good. The money trickling down to the clubs who actually isn't enough yet. We haven't cracked that bit where...
Yeah, so but I suppose that's the bit. The only thing I'll say to you is Waterford are full-time in the first division, which is like bizarre from a League of Ireland perspective. But if you're involved with Waterford, I do know that like when you get English people involved with Irish football, that's probably the wrong way of putting it, but they understand that players should be fed after matches. They understand players should be fed after training. They understand the kit man should be full-time. And sometimes we've been a little bit slow here to realise what real professionalism is in Irish football due to cost, etc. So I would say Waterford are more professional than a lot of teams, or not a lot, but a certain amount of teams in the Premier Division, and they'll be doing their business right. So there is real strong pros about it. It gives a real opportunity. We just have to keep an eye on the motive of it. That's the only question.
Yeah, okay. And how it skews everything else. But if it's a rising tide that sets some standards, so long as there is some Irish ownership or...
Well, if Hull want to buy Dundalk and take up that plastic pitch and put down a grass pitch, that's straight away, that's a win-win if they're going to spend that money.
Yeah.
But we don't. Like, that's further down the line, obviously, but we'll see.
Okay. Really important for the league that we have a title race to bring everybody along. Good of Sligo Rovers to do the rest of the league a favour by scoring in the 97th minute to draw 1-0 with Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, that's still my concern this year. I've seen what is perceivably second and third, Derry and Pats. I think you've seen a lot of teams have a real slow start to the season, and that's part of the problem, because so many clubs are signing players on loan in the last week or two. There isn't a rhythm to the teams in the first game of the season. The challenge for, say, Derry for me was 1-0 up, 20 minutes to go. They should, league winning teams win that game 1-0. They had enough about them to win it. Probably didn't manage it well enough, gave away a lot of free kicks and corners, and ultimately Pat scored. But you'll only get away with losing 4 to 5 games a season and drawing 4 or 5. So already you're on the back foot. But you would imagine, I still say Rovers are there and probably comfortably ahead, and I don't see the title race as close as other people do, but hopefully I'm wrong.
And have Rovers added enough this year in this off-season to compete at a higher level in Europe than they managed last year, do you think?
Well, my initial is probably not. and the challenge for them is their squad is so big, it's so good, it's full of talent. Like Trevor Clark is a brilliant signing, Liam Bort from Bohemians, and they've Marcus Poom on loan from Flora Talon, whose his father was Marcus Poom. He by all accounts is a really good player, but to treat them in and isn't enough to go to the next level where you could see them winning games in the Conference League group stages. Probably not. But at the same time, they have a really strong squad, and you can only have so many places, and that is the challenge. I've had it before, and I understand how difficult that's going to be for them.
All right, Vinny, good stuff. Great to have you with us. Thanks a million. It's 8:44 this morning. John Duggan's up next. First, here is some Kenny Cunningham talking about Liverpool's individual errors last night.
And it's more what you're describing there, which is those small mistakes, Gomez, Bacic, and they just get punished.
Yeah, and it's amazing, Joe, because even in my career, I always found even the level, the highest level that I got to, even like in international football, and just kind of, you know, professionally, whatever, never played in the Premiership. For me, the basic principles still applied, even the higher that you went. You know, just do the basics. Even at the highest level, it used to cost you. You know what I mean? Just switching off. You know, a runner having an extra touch to, you know, going to ground when you should have stayed in your feet. You know, going tight to a play when you should have dropped into this. All the basic, the fundamentals of kind of defending, that you're taught growing up, still apply even when you're playing at the elite level. And we've spoken about a few of them tonight in relation to a couple of the goals Liverpool have conceded. So you're right, actually, in terms of Liverpool's kind of collective defensive structure. I actually think stood up quite well, particularly first half, which was great to see. But within that, you know, just individual errors. And I'm not talking about, I know there was an error from Alisson, a big error in relation to the second goal, but the other goals, just small little errors like decision making, positional sense, you know, have just cost them. This team has been absolutely ruthless.
There you go. That's Kenny Cunningham in the moment last night. Alisson's been the best keeper in the league this season, easily Liverpool's best player, says Michael. Alisson is still the best keeper in the world, says Brian. Henderson and Fabinho need to be shipped out. Henderson has been an issue for 18 months or more. He's finished. God,
don't know if Alisson's the best keeper in the world.
Badger turned on the hand and gripped.
He's up there for sure, Alisson, but I think there are better keepers on form at the moment. But yeah, as I said earlier, he's not the problem. There are many problems at Liverpool. One of the 7-year itch is a thing. I don't know, John, if you agree with the 7-year itch with Klopp and whether he has the ability to rebuild a successful team.
I think he's got the ability, but I think there's been a brain drain there at Liverpool recently upstairs, and I do think that this maybe he's been a bit too loyal to players, and it's hard not to be loyal when you reach the end point of every competition last season, which he did, winning 2 cups and reaching the end of the league and reaching the end of the Champions League. But it's obvious, it's evident that there needs to be different players in those 11 positions, in certain positions next season than there are at the moment.
Yeah, I think they thought that Luis Diaz was going to be free radical in that and allow them to continue that high intensity, and I think that they thought that Darwin Núñez was going to be that too, and I think they thought that Cody Gakpo was going to be that, and it turned out that that area did need all that, but at the same time they actually needed, and the injury to Konate has meant that they haven't got him to bed down into the team just yet. So it's kind of a sequence of things, which if you take them all in their like small bit, 2 midfielders in the summer, and actually they could
I think
still be tight contenders next season.
Midfield is the big issue. It's big. Like, you're relying on a kid who could be a great kid, but he's a kid, an 18-year-old there, and playing in the middle of the park last night. Fabinho and Henderson, you'd have to say, on the basis of the evidence recently, are not players that you might want to see in the Liverpool midfield next season. They've conceded 18 goals in 10 games. It's not just defensive errors. It always comes from the fact that your defence needs to be protected. And that's one of the issues Liverpool have. And it's almost like they're at 5% battery on a phone. They're able, like for 20 minutes last night, I felt, this is going to be, you know, another great Anfield night. And then it's a 90-minute game, not a 20-minute game. So that's what I kind of felt last night.
At the same time, Real Madrid, holy hell.
Yeah.
That is like, I mean, to just be able to whip that out from 2-0 down, a little bit tired, La Liga form not great, looks like Barcelona are going to cakewalk the league, and everybody's kind of like,
it's a bit like Toulouse in the Rugby Cup, isn't it? When Toulouse weren't winning French championships, but would always turn up in Europe and do it.
Ancelotti might be going to Brazil.
Yes.
No, sorry, we're just going to win the Champions League.
It's the psychology, though, almost of winners. It's like when Man United were winning all those league titles under Ferguson. It's a psychology of
being a team that is the Royal Madrid, obviously Real is Royal, that they are the establishment, and they know that they're the establishment, and they can bring players like Vinicius and Rodrigo into the team and make them stars.
The scary thing about how good they are in the counter-attack is that Liverpool have to go for it at the Bernabeu, which leaves them...
No, the game is over.
Yeah, but this is my point. It could get embarrassing in terms of an aggregate score because they'll be open then to further counter-attacks.
Wasn't there a game like this where Brendan Rodgers picked the B team? Didn't that happen? And they battened down the hatches. Klopp's not going to do it. Like, Klopp is going to...
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'm just very interested to see what's going to happen at Crystal Palace now Saturday night. One of all the places, Palace on a night.
Oh, the ghosts.
Of all the places on a night, it's a really good atmosphere. And
not the place you want to be going after a game.
No,
like
I don't think so. And they're playing the counter, so that'll be interesting to see.
The Palace are pretty crappy at the moment.
They are at the moment.
That's maybe they'll make an exception.
They beat United under lights there at Sellers Park. They're good against the big teams. Generally speaking, they seem
to have
to
won at the weekend, didn't. Tonight we got Man City against Leipzig. No De Bruyne and no Laporte and no Stones. I was looking at Leipzig are 5th at the Bundesliga at the moment. Inter Porto and Napoli are the most under the radar team in Europe at the moment. 1-2-0 last night.
Napoli are sensational.
They're unbelievable. They are unbelievable. Now the point is they've won Serie A. Well, they're
amazing. They haven't won it since Maradona.
But can they?
They've never won it outside.
That's
Maradona.
crazy. Imagine the scenes in Naples.
1990.
So they can focus on the Champions League massively because they have that 15-point gap. I don't know if I don't know how much it's going to help them, but you'd fancy them again, if they come up against a Real Madrid or a Bayern, it would be a cracking game. I'm not saying Napoli get over the line, but they have every chance of winning the Champions League.
So what else we got today? We have the Wales decision. What's going to happen there? There are players meeting the Professional Rugby Board.
I can't understand how they've let this drag on so late this week. Do you know, it's got to the point of the brinkmanship where it really looks like a strike is a very strong possibility.
Over 70 players don't know their futures, and this game is worth 10 million to the WRU. And you'd have to think, I was reading Jonathan Liu talking about the fact that they haven't cooperated with the Netflix people. Over the all that CVC or investment in rugby and all that kind of private equity that's gone into rugby. Surely there's somebody in those organisations making calls going, can we not just sort this out? It's amazing that it's got to this, as you say.
Even Gatlin seems surprised. Speaking yesterday, he seemed surprised that it's got to this.
Private equity notoriously, not pro-worker though. They might be like, so it'd be interesting to see how those conversations are happening. But definitely, if you're going to protect your investment, the game has to happen, lads.
Yes.
The game has to happen.
And we had, for obviously different reasons, much more serious reasons in the Troubles. There was games not fulfilled in 1972, for example. Wales and Scotland didn't come to Dublin. We had obviously foot and mouth games delayed and that, but it is amazing that they haven't.
I wonder what footage Netflix have of all this. I know they were kicked out of some of the meetings. Understandably, they didn't want to have the Netflix cameras there hovering over them, but I'm sure they have some.
But the Netflix deal is also worth 150 grand or something.
Yeah.
It's pissant money compared to the 10 million for this fixture.
Oh, yeah. Broadcasting and stuff, yeah.
You were saying there was a good interview with Gavin Henson in the London Times today.
The Brendan Ventry stuff was funny.
Makes some of the Irish papers as well. He himself and his missus are going to the game, and it's the first time he's been back at the Millennium, whatever it's called.
Principality.
And it'll be his first time back in a match, but the game might not be on. What was the Brendan Ventry stuff?
He was wrestling with Brendan Venter at 6:30 in the morning because I think Brendan Venter just wanted to test him a bit, and Henson's going, what? And they ended up wrestling matches
on purpose.
Yeah.
It was scheduled wrestling as opposed to
and just funny stories. And he's running a pub now, which is interesting. Did you just have pancakes last night, lads?
Didn't touch them, John. No, didn't touch them.
He can't make them. Shane can't make them.
I felt let down. Can you make them?
No, I'm not a good cook. Maybe it's a resolution for Lent, so I could become a cook. But
what's your go-to pancake?
Oh, it's got to be there's no blasphemy involved. There's no cheating. There's none of the savoury stuff. It's got to be all lemon and sugar now. Can't be any of this savoury stuff. Although to be fair, last night I had salted caramel on one, I had maple syrup on another. So
bacon and maple syrup, the classics. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Ger's influenced by North American culture.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, we're open to many, and other parts of the world have other interesting cultures too.
Yeah. More power to you.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll obviously get an update as well from the Irish camp later today, and then the women's team play China at 1:00, folks, today in Marbella in this training camp ahead of the World Cup, one of many.
Keep an eye on our social channels. We'll keep you up to date on how Ireland are getting on against China. Kathleen McNamee is in Marbella for us. It is 8:54. More from John, of course, on Saturday afternoon on Off the Ball on News Talk. But it's time for us to turn our attention back to rugby. Derek McNamara is back with us. Derek, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Ger. How are you?
Another
Welsh deadline day.
Yeah.
Which is a bit depressing, really, isn't it? You know?
It's mad they can't sort it out because there's so much money slushing around rugby that, Anyway, there's a whole hour-long conversation around that.
I'm right. Like I've been thinking about it on the way in, and there's kind of like issues there that could be resolved, but it's the problem is in reality is that we need to start treating this like a professional sport. Like there's situations like this where they're coming up each time, and the old guard that are there that have been there since the amateur days are still there
in all of the unions.
Yeah. And they need to move on and allow the new guard come through, and the players themselves need to be much more involved in this situation themselves.
One of the UK papers, I don't want to misattribute it, but they are making the point that this is the beginning of the player power, which has happened in all professional sports, and some professional sports have been really good at it, and others haven't. The PFA have managed to get a share of the TV revenue that is baked into all of their contracts, and they also managed to get a share of the revenue that came from FIFA. And so the players' unions are really rich. Now, what they've done with that money might not necessarily be great. They spent a lot of money on art, and they spent like massive amounts of money on their chief executive. So you would maybe argue that although they won the money, they didn't spend it very wisely, but it'll be there for them in the future. I've often wondered, why aren't the rugby players a bit more active about their own health, the concussion laws, and their share of the pie?
Yeah.
But anyway, look.
No, but like that is quintessentially it. Like the other sports have done it. It's naive of rugby and people that are involved in rugby not to realise that other sports have done this. Like rugby league, this has happened where 30 years after the implementation of professionalism, there was a change. The game evolved. Happens in American football every 10 years. Players come to bargaining agreements.
Yeah. You can argue that they haven't done a very good job of it in American football either. I don't think they have. I think there's loads of things where they could have got a bigger share of the pie.
At least those players have a seat at the table. At least those players are there under that bargaining agreement so that they know how much of the piece of the pie is theirs. And they are also there as a result of agreeing to what rules that are agreed upon around injuries or, sites or fines. Like the Owen Farrell incidents. At least that the players would have an agreement that if this person does this, that this fine is implemented. But all of this as well. There's things around the salaries are going to come into question soon enough. Where the salary cap has remained questionable in most of these unions, and it's going to be amateuristic. The way it is, it's going to remain amateuristic. And it wasn't that long ago that the American football salaries were quite, were the same in a similar situation. And it's only in the last 10 years has it become, that player is getting this money over a certain amount of years.
Yeah.
So all this is going to have to change. But the overall issue with rugby, you just look at the Netflix situation. The Netflix situation it's a very similar situation where it's just amateuristic views. Like I'm nearly positive that the teams themselves would have editorial finish on that, on any of that content that goes out. The teams would have to give it the okay. So the idea that anything would be shared or lost is, if it doesn't happen in cricket or tennis or NFL or F1, it's not going to happen in rugby.
Let's talk about the situations because that definitely we could spend a fair bit of time getting into that.
Yeah.
So there's been a down week this week, an opportunity for you to compare and contrast all of the different teams. And what have you come up with for us this week?
Yeah, I suppose I think a piece around the six for Ireland that I did a couple of weeks ago.
Peter Mahoney.
Yeah. Went down quite well, and it was like, it was underutilized or underappreciated player. And what we did was we've been working really, really hard in trying to encapsulate everything that goes into the game and give it a weight towards specific positions. So second rows do this, back rows carry more, but they also ruck and they tackle. They don't do as much lineouts. So what we've done is that we've done this for every single position, and we've weighted it based on what's important for that position. And I think we've got a slide here just around the second rows. So this is jersey number 5. And basically what we've done here is all the Six Nations, this is competition prior to and during Six Nations, we basically grade and rank each position based on the kind of core metrics. So rucking, carrying, tackling, lineouts, passing, maul, turnovers. There's more than this, but that's the basic of it. And when we take all these kind of metrics, we can then identify who's the best player at each position based on what they're doing and how well they're doing these things. And James Ryan comes out on top, and he's kind of a player that's kind of been lost a little bit amongst the different players that are coming to the fore for Ireland. But he's a real leader. He looks after the line out. But it's the big thing that he's significantly improving, or one of the main reasons why Ireland has improved is because of his tackling and because of his defensive impact on the game. And this is just a slide that we've kind of come up with.
So it's tackle grade we should maybe go back to the first one there, just to show him versus other people. So in the first one, it's you've got him at number 1, Chesham is number 2, Gilchrist of Scotland is 3, Lorutz of Italy is 4, Paul Willems of France is 5. And the difference is again, I don't know what these grades mean fully, but James Ryan's 76.9, Chesham's 73.3, and Willems is 70.1. So these grades, is that out of 100?
It's out of 100. So in each skill set, you start off with the opportunity of getting 100. The closer you are to being at the top of each skill set, the closer you are to 100. So, the fact that James Ryan needs to kind of work a little bit on his rucking, for instance, or his decision making at the rucking, if he's able to improve that, his overall grade will move up closer to that 100. But the fact that he's number 1 at tackling and at line out means there's a significant difference between him and the guys that are behind him.
And so that 76 is a blended score of all the other constituent parts that make that up, and that breaks down, cascades down.
And we do this for every position. So for the likes of centre, we would look more at carrying and tackling, while here we'd be looking at mauling and lineouts. Obviously we wouldn't want to do that for a centre or a full back, but we were able to do this in all these different ways. But if we go on to the next slide, then we can kind of just go into what the tackling grade comes from. So basically when we look at the tackle grade, we look at tackle and grade, we look at the production, so how much of the tackling he's been involved in.
Okay, so this is he's graded number 1 in tackles, right? And your tackle grade has tackle production, contact point, gain line success, distance, frequency, and assist, and then you grade each of those, and then they come together to give you your tackle grade.
Yeah, so like for instance, the tackle point would be we have the game line, and basically the player who makes first contact behind the game line the most, and we averagate those scores. That person then is the number 1, and James is ranked number 6. Game line success would be the ability of the opposition player to get back to the game line, or the defensive player to stop that player. He's ranked number 8. And then distance is the actual distance from contact to where the tackle ends, and James is 10th he's right in the middle of the pack. But then as frequency, we say how many tackles were on the pitch while James was on the pitch, how many of them was he involved with, and then we give a ratio of, and then that way we can say what his ratio is like to all other players at the same position.
That ratio is interesting because it means that if it signifies your importance to the rest of the team as well, that you're part of that effort, and you can actually be very important in that effort, or because the team can not have many tackles because you can be dominating the game, you can make 3 or 4 and look like you're amazing, but otherwise if a team is making those tackles and you're also at least at your average, then I can see how that score begins to make sense.
Yeah, no, and it's something that we do for tackle, for breakdowns, for passing, for kicking. We want to identify who are the players that are mostly impacting in the game. Same with mauls as well. Maul is a big one where you don't have, you only have 1 or 2 players. Josh van der Fleer does it for Ireland, where he takes the ball off the line of jumper, and he's the guy that basically everything runs around in the maul. But it's just that we want to try and represent the impact that each player is having on the game. And it's not just about tackling, it's not just about carrying, it's not just about line out. everything pulled together, and in behind those skill sets and behind those numbers, we then have another 20 different things that we're taking into consideration.
Is it maybe even more impressive, Ryan, stats, given that France have been one of the opposing teams? Like, I don't know if they're weighted for opposition as such, but the fact that he's played France already make those stats even more impressive.
Yeah, we do weight it towards for at a team perspective, but when we do it for an individual, we do slightly put it in for your opposition, but not as much as we would for the team perspective. But it's like the individual players can only do what they're supposed to do once they're out on the pitch, if that makes sense.
So James Ryan's pretty good.
Yeah, turns out he's pretty amazing.
Well, you got Peter O'Mahony a central contract based on the last conversation. So
yeah, I know. I'm waiting.
Ryan's buzzing here,
waiting for that 10% now. Actually, I think we'll be waiting. But no, like it's just, I suppose the point of what we're trying to say here is, fans and consumers and people that are interested in this stuff, they can actually log into our website and actually, interact with this data to a certain extent.
Every rugby agent in the world is suddenly like, oh, okay.
I've actually had a few of them contact me in the last week or two. They're like, hey, what about this?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So it's all gone, all moving forward anyway, going in the right direction.
So are there lessons to be learned apart from the fact that, like, obviously you're explaining the bits, the constituent parts that make James Ryan the outstanding number 5 jersey, you were saying, over the course. Is there anything else, like, so the bit where it's beneficial is like if you improve your rucking, is he like, well, actually part of my role is not to be that person, or is it just, here, these are the little work-ons?
Well, so like with rucking is like, again, we look at rucking frequency, we look at ruck arrival time, we look at ruck accuracy, we look at ruck.
Okay, so there's constituent parts which maybe he could improve.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
the benefit of this from their perspective.
Exactly, and that's what that's our bread and butter is helping players to identify specific areas that they can work on, because as a player, this is non-bias information. We're not looking at any particular player or position and saying, oh, I think he should, I like that player. Something to do with that. It's more, okay, if you want to understand where you are based on the other players that are at your position and how you could slightly improve and make small incremental gains, then, get in touch.
The next part is about game plans, right? And the patterns of play that have emerged over, is it just the first 2 games of the Six Nations?
Just the first 2 games of the Six Nations, yeah. Okay. So this is something that we've been working on for the last number of months. We've been collecting lots and lots of data, but only now have we been able to start to actually use it and try and tell a story about what teams are doing in different parts of the pitch. So what we do is we use the pitch position, we use the breakdowns, so where the breakdowns are happening. We used what direction the teams go in, and then average number of phases per phase until they either kick the ball away or they get the ball turned over. And what we're trying to show here is that in defensive positions, so basically anything within 30 metres or your opposition's scoring position, Ireland tend to spread the ball quite wide. They'll go through 1.5 phases and then they'll get rid of the ball.
So this is in possession?
This is in possession. So this is just when teams have possession in our own half, in our own 22. Ireland do tend to spread the ball quite wide when they do have it. And then they'll try and find out, or maybe bring a defensive player kind of up out of the line to try and get more space in behind, and then they'll get rid of it. Italy and Scotland, though, they will play with the ball a little bit more in their own half, and then they'll spread the ball. Italy spread the ball the widest, which is, you can see that in the games. And
sorry, you're saying that they play with it a bit more. You can tell that because they have more breakdowns.
Yeah, because they have more breakdowns in their own 22, and you can see that in the game. They're playing out of their own half basically. And then when we move to midfield, so basically we take midfield as the same slice type of area. Ireland go from being one of the top kind of width player teams, so passing the ball quite wide, to being the lowest in the competition actually. And they've also got kind of second fewest number of breakdowns in this area. So what they're doing is they're getting the ball, and they're getting the ball into attacking position or scoring position, and they're not spending too much time in the middle area.
Okay. Do you expect there to be significant changes as games 3, 4 and 5 get layered into this?
No, I don't. I think what you'll find is certain teams will hone in on what they're trying to do, and more players will become more aware of what they're supposed to do in each part of the position of the pitch. But in reality, these rugby isn't at the stage where teams are able to implement different game strategies mid-game. You know, it's not like the NFL. It's not like different sports.
Is there an element of game flow though that you don't anticipate? Like if France had a load of pressure on Ireland in R22 and it was taking us ages to get out, if they were better at that, would that have shown up and we would have ended up having more breakdowns just by virtue of the fact that France were showing us a picture in defence that was like, I don't like that, I'm going to wait a while. I don't like that, I'm going to wait a while.
I don't know. I'm not directly involved with any teams, so I don't actually know what they're trying to do. We can just basically measure what's going on in the game right now.
So this is the evidence of the game plan so far.
Yeah, exactly. And teams don't tend to change their style or the way in which they play. They more tend to the more accurate the data is, the more the game plan has been implemented and is understood by the rest of the team. So
it's just a positive thing that we're spending less time in the midfield area. Like, we're not wasting time in areas of the pitch where we're less likely to score, essentially.
Yeah, correct. Like, you can see Italy have the highest number of breakdowns in the midfield area, and that's their game plan. Their game plan is like, if we get you see it, if they get a what do you call it? Sorry,
penalty.
Advantage.
Okay.
They'll continue playing on, and they won't just take the penalty. A lot of teams will stop and slow down and take the kick. But with Italy, they'll continue on, so they'll build pressure. They're trying to build pressure.
They're trying to wear you down.
Exactly.
It's a lot of work for a little reward, though.
I was going to say, it feels a little bit like they're stuck in midfield.
And exactly, and their biggest issue is that they're 2 or 3 players short of having a really good team. And then once that ball gets to those players, unfortunately things break down. Players make a small mistake, and that small mistake means then that everything else falls apart. You know,
until they get Garabisi back this weekend and stuff Ireland.
Hey,
well, they were pretty good at midfield this week, and all of a sudden,
yeah. So then I suppose what we're trying to show here is you know, the average number of phases starts to tick up as we go into midfield. So, you know, we're in the one to you know, late ones number of phases teams will go through. And then, you know, in midfield, teams are going through around 2 phases to Italy that go through around 3.7 phases in this area. So we can see teams starting to try and implement their game plan in these areas. But then when we get into kind of scoring attack and in your opposition's kind of just outside your 22, this is where Ireland, you know, really try to start to come good. We can see that they have the most amount of breakdowns in this area. So basically, we're talking about we split the attack into kind of 2 areas. We've got our goal line attack, which is around anywhere within around 12 to 15 metres of the goal line.
Red zone,
yeah. Well, I don't know. I like calling it green zone myself.
Whatever,
because it's like, you know, it's where we need to be tuned in.
That's what people will understand it.
Yeah. But then anything kind of behind that, kind of just before the 22 and, you know, in between kicking zone, this is where Ireland like to spend, you know, a lot of their time. What they do is they try to build pressure. They've got quite a narrow attack, so, you know, the second lowest attack location, but they have the most amount of phases of all. So they go through 7.7 phases. And what that do is that's building pressure. That's trying to cause mistakes by the defence. Get them the advantage so that then they can try and implement their play.
Or it's getting over the try line 4 times and being held up.
Yes.
Well, so there's swings and roundabouts for this too, though, right?
Yeah.
Like if we thought that Italy were getting choked up in midfield, we're getting a bit choked up here. Is there an efficiency?
No. Well, we have our most amount in the red zone. So in the goal line zone, we have 89. In here, we have 57. So what we're saying here is that they'd like to put the teams under pressure. They like to play in this area. They like to actually go to the phases and
very
hold
narrow,
off the ball,
which we've seen. It's like this is the evidence of your eyes. Is like there's pick and go at the goal, and we're very rarely where you know James Lowe standing on the sideline. Come on.
Yeah. You can see it. Yeah. But like but then when we get to the actual goal line, we can actually see Ireland go through the number of phases, but also we have a direction counter. Basically, if a player goes one way and then he goes another way, he goes again and again, we basically keep counting until he goes back the opposite direction.
Okay.
And then we say, okay, when we average up those, we can then identify whether or not teams are playing in certain directions or not. And we can see Ireland do play in a certain direction.
So we'll hammer away when we think there's a weakness there. We'll keep hammering.
Yeah, keep hammering in the same direction.
And do we want to keep the ball in play for as long as possible, akin to the French game against Italy?
Yeah, that's the way Ireland are going to play now. You know, and I think that's where the game will be won and lost. I definitely think on Saturday, you look at the way in which Italy played or France played against them in the first game, and they played to their strengths. You know, they kicking the ball out of play, letting their line out set, letting them run nice lines directly off first phase. That's not the way to play Italy. The way to play Italy is keep them in play, keep them under pressure. You know, make them make mistakes, and then put the points on late in the second half.
We didn't ask you to do any work on the France-Scotland game, but instinctively, do you think Scotland have any chance of turning France over?
Give us 2 seconds. I can tell you now. I do, but it's going to be tough. Like, I think Scotland probably have a couple of cracks. I think France are there for the taking, though. You know, like, they haven't been what they were the last couple of games. Like their front five are where they're better. You know, definitely they're Scotland are much better than them in their front five. Their halfbacks are not as good, even though Finn Russell does grade quite well, and he had a very good game the last game. He's very hit and miss, and it's hard to tell whether or not he's strength or weakness of Scotland in a lot of the games he plays in, because if he's put under pressure, he always makes that skip pass. He can be taken advantage of.
For players like that, this level of analysis and data would be really, really useful. On the football pod this week, they were talking about the use of the word mercurial and how it's never really a good thing, ultimately.
Don't know what that means, Ger.
If you're the player who's being described as mercurial, there's an inbuilt understanding that flakiness will result from pressure.
Yeah.
But that you're capable of doing stuff that nobody else can do. If like, as a 17, 18, 19 and 20 year olds, there was every time you do this, it results in this.
Yeah.
And somebody sat down and said, this is just, it's evidence based. It might knock a few of the rough edges off some of those mercurial players.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly why I'm doing this. You know, it's why we're doing this, is to identify those players that work well under pressure. You know, the last slide that we showed around the game plan, that's only the kind of start of what we're doing. We also understand how pressure affects teams and individuals and passing. You know, we identify every pass, we identify the pressure of that player under that situation. So understanding players that do that on under 20s and schools, you know, we'll find those players that are like kind of like this, rather than the players that get to 20 and they don't want to play rugby anymore because they're burnt out.
So, last question. Ireland are going to beat Italy?
Yeah, I think they're going to beat them reasonably well. I'd say you'll see a similar situation where we go through the first 20 minutes figuring it out. But
even with Ross Byrne in for Sexton, the drop-off is no longer as significant or as pronounced as it used to be?
I just think we have too many good players. Is it Dan Sheehan come back as well?
Well, he might be on the bench.
Yeah, but like he's a phenomenal ball carrier. You know, he takes that step every time he gets that ball.
Yeah,
gets over the game line.
It's funny. It's one of those things in world sport that you know is coming but can't stop. The Dan Sheehan step. Because he steps and you're like, oh, I'm going to attack him, and then smashes you. It's like,
and also he's faster than nearly everybody else, which is, you know, you don't see that. But I think you'll see. I hope the Wales game goes ahead. I really do. But whether it does or not is another question.
Very good stuff. Thanks very much.
Cheers,
for more, check out reactrugby.com. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio across the day. You can listen to OTB Sports Radio on our sports app, by the way, or you can get it in Go Loud. You just flick across and it's non-stop, continuous, top quality sports content in your earballs. OTB Gold at 1 o'clock is our Irish football special. Leaders' questions from 3 with Stuart Lancaster. Our retro panel is on gambling and addiction, and OTB Gold is Colin McGooch Cooper. Joe will be back tonight from 7 with Wednesday Night Rugby and plenty more besides, including, of course, live updates on the Man City game and reaction to the Republic of Ireland's game against China this afternoon from Kathleen. It is 18 minutes past 9. We are back with Around the World with Hannah next.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
OTB Sports Rugby.
Don't just take it easy, keep the emotion in check.
That's not what sport is about. It's about emotion. It's about singing your national anthem with pride.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
That's two boys who were 36, and you're looking at Jack McCaffrey now 2 years out of the game. If we were to do an experiment and send Paddy Anders and James O'Donoghue back to
I can't even get out of this chair, Tommy. Never mind, get back on the pitch.
How would you boys look in comparison to how you left it? Would you be able to get back the way Jack McCaffrey's got back, James?
No. Don't answer that question, Jimmy. Don't answer that.
How many yards of pace do you think you've lost, Paddy?
I had pace in the first place, Tommy, so I wouldn't. I was never overly reliant on my pace, but I just.
It is impressive.
When you look back, right? Because we'll be watching these games now, and they're going, "How did he miss that?" Or "What's he done there?" Like, and you just think, I was useless my last season when I finished. It's just like this level is so high. When you're out, you are out. But seeing Jack yesterday,
yeah,
like that's the one thing I worry with someone when they've been away or they're a little bit older is pace is usually the first thing to go. Everyone speaks it. You lose a yard of pace or whatever. But there was 2 or 3 times poor old Brian Hurley tried to get him on the sideline and Jack just burned by him on the outside. So
OTB AM with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, before we get into this, obviously you've just heard a clip from the football pod there with James and Paddy and Tommy. The football pod is in partnership with AIB, proud football, hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Proud sponsors, check out the hashtag the toughest for more.
Quite enjoyed the background music to the commercial reads. I thought it added something. Certainly is more interesting. Everyone's favourite part of the week, Ger, around the world, as we all know by this stage. Even Adrian Barry's come on board and starting to embrace it for what it is.
It's fake news.
It's fake news. You can be the grumpy old man this week if you want.
No, I'm not grumpy about this at all.
Not at all. We're going to start in Canada. So we heard a little bit earlier on, Katie McCabe was wearing the One Love armband for the match. This, of course, being the infamous One Love armband that Harry Kane and a number of other captains at the recent World Cup in Qatar refused to wear or decided not to wear for fear of picking up a yellow card. But the Canadian women's team wearing purple shirts, displaying the words "Enough is enough" as a protest ahead of their She Believes Cup match recently against the United States. You can see a statement up on the screen there from the players. Tonight our players will be wearing purple as a symbol of protest. Purple has historically been associated with efforts to achieve gender equality. Considering the current circumstances, our players will continue to wear purple until our association has standards in place that ensure equal treatment and opportunity. This is a bit of a trend that seems to be drumming up across football associations around the world. So complaining about the level of funding essentially from Canada Soccer in comparison to the men's team. And when you look at the Canadian women's team, they've been, world beaters.
Slightly more successful than their men.
Just a little bit. And of course the men getting to the World Cup and having a bit of success in December, but the women's team have been there, done that, and clearly had the consistency level. So they had a 2-0 defeat to the US and Florida of late. Players from both teams, in fact, wearing purple tape as well on their wrists. The CSBA, the Canadian Association, then releasing a statement from the players saying Canada Soccer told us that they consider our job action to be an unlawful strike and that, quote, if we did not return to work, they would not only take legal action to force us back to the pitch, but will consider taking steps to collect what could be millions of dollars in damages. So a bit of a PR disaster for the CSBA. This whole incident, the fact that the US team supported them as well and wore those purple wristbands, kind of emphasising the need for action on this one. Christine Sinclair, one of the players, tweeting at the time as well. To be clear, we're being forced back to work for the short term. This is not over. We will continue to fight for everything we deserve and we will win. The She Believes is being played in protest. So they could have, of course, pulled out of this game, decided not to play the game against America and had a bit of an impact that way, but they decided, no, we're actually going to play the match and protest in that regard and have our purple shirts and purple wristbands and bring a little bit of attention to it. And I think that was probably the right move in the end. They've inadvertently brought more, I guess, heat on the CSBA and the Canadian Association, the Canada Soccer, saying Canada Soccer has heard the women's national team players, has committed to a path to addressing each of the demands made by the players, but Canada Soccer knows that is not enough. There is still work to do. So a bit of a climb down based on the protest.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the whole point of protests. They're supposed to work. Shane, I do have a question.
Yeah, here we go.
Why didn't you bring us report / footage
Sometimes we're allowed to use footage in this slot, and sometimes we're not. Just again, revealing a bit too much information there. But I see there's some footage on your own Instagram account.
Oh, right.
Oh,
here I am. It's me on the right hand side.
It's obviously a training game because you're wearing the same shirts.
That was a bit of a dirty kick. No, Cavan Town are wearing green. You can't really tell. We have a turquoise blue sort of top.
No, they're the same.
The point of this, and you're going to have to play this again. But
Getaway shirts. Like someone needs to wear white?
The point of this, right?
What colour are you, lads? We're blue. What colour are you? Kind of greeny blue. Okay. What about the colourblind? With all due respect, like...
The lighting was quite poor in the video. I can promise on the pitch. So I obviously passed the ball there.
That's Hannah with the ball. Hiding on the right wing.
That tackle was late. You can hear the crunch. But that's the point, Ger. I went over to him, made sure he was okay. Not once, not twice. But when he stands up again, here's a little... Yeah, you alright, man? Yeah, you're grand. You see, he was the right back for Cavan, and we'd had a bit of a chat at the start of the second half, waiting for the game to restart. And we'd kind of had a little bit of a bonding session.
Oh, you were a matey chat.
So yeah, I didn't actually know the lad.
You're just not the killer, you need to be there.
No, I still scored in that match and we won 4-3, so that's all that matters, Ger.
So you're faking it with him, like, I tell you what I'll do. I'll
kill him with kindness.
Pretend to be friends, and then I'll kill him with the tackle.
You got to distract them.
I got to say though, can we just roll this one more time? You don't actually touch him.
Listen though, you'll hear the crunch. Well, it's a little bit of a kick.
He hits the ball. That's the sound you're hearing.
You know what? I'm going to get on board with you here, Ger. He dived.
They didn't touch him at all.
Cavan divers.
Sorry, lads. You need to change a kit. Someone needs to sponsor
Either Cavan Town or Monaghan Town. Actually, yeah, Monaghan Town we're more than willing to take sponsors.
Monaghan Town versus Cavan Town. It should be like the greatest BV. It should be Springfield versus Shelbyville. Because like really nobody knows anything about these two towns, and they're not even the best, most important towns in their own counties that are named after them.
Well, to me, Monaghan Town is the most important town in the world. But we were 2-1 down at half time. We were 3-2 down then as well, Ger, and late on.
Real Madrid-esque.
Yeah, it was a very good comeback. So glad that Around the World took us all the way to Cavan as well for.
Hey, look, all politics is local.
Exactly. So thank you. And yeah, if anyone wants to sponsor Monaghan Town for new jerseys or a pitch, feel free. We're always looking. We're going to go next from Cavan to Australia. Bathurst, Australia, to be precise. This was quite a tough watch in the video. We're not going to play the video, but we'll have a few stills for you. So Letessenbet Gide was the pre-race favourite in a world cross-country race. So not exactly a small race. It was very, very important. Finishing line in sight. Ethiopian looking like she was going to win the gold with ease. And then meters, and I mean meters from the tape. The 24-year-old falls, and in the blink of an eye, it's gone. So that's the moment at which she falls. It's almost like her legs collapse. Really disappointing moment. People then try to help her up. It was a spectacular conclusion, and then of course it's a Kenyan behind her to rub salt in the wounds, because of course the Kenya-Ethiopia battle always very, very intense at cross-country level. She was helped over the line, as you can see there in that image, by some Ethiopian officials, but Beatrice Chebet then overhauling Gide with an impressive final kick. So it was Gide is a well-known athlete as well. She's a top athlete in her own right, but Chebet is the world 5,000 metre silver medalist. Sprints towards her, overtakes her, and to make matters worse, Gide, who falls over, she's the reigning world 10,000 metre champion, by the way, she was disqualified. So that last photo you saw of outside assistance from the Ethiopian officials and the supporters as well, jumping the fence to assist her, leads to her disqualification. So even when she does eventually cross the line, it's pointless. She's disqualified. Instagram post then she puts up after the race. She says, "I'm doing well. Thank you for all the messages. I will be back. Today was a good race with a sad ending for me. Let's take the good forward to the future." Michael Johnson, the Olympic great as well, getting involved in this. He tweeted afterwards saying, "Wow, heartbreaking for Letessenbet, the world cross country champs, literally just meters from the tape." The moral of this story, Ger, from this story in Australia, it's never over until it's over. No matter what sport it's in, whether you're 3-2 down to Cavan Town with 10 minutes to play, or you're in a world cross country final, it's never over till it's over. So one of the lessons from Around the World this week. Our next segment in Around the World, we're going all the way to the Alps. This is a bit of a concerning story, Ger, I guess, and to bring my inner Johnny Ward, climate change warrior, to the show this morning. But this is very much a story that's concerning. Top skiers have signed a letter to the International Ski and Snowboard Federation, which are the FIS, demanding action over the climate emergency. There's a depressing stock photo of melting snow on ice ski Alps, and there's another stock photo of a snowman, very sad looking snowman, melting with a pot in his head. But a notable lack of snow in this skiing season that's currently ongoing across alpine resorts. Holidaymakers disappointed, Some ski tournaments have been called off as well. So no more guaranteed snow at the top of some of these ski resorts. A lot of places are moving their ski season to be changed to keep up with climate breakdown. They've suggested shifting it from the start of the season from late October to late November, and the end of the season from mid-March to late April. So the Norwegian racer Alexander Amod Kilde has been speaking on this. He said, "We see that the world is changing. We also see the impact of our sport. I want the future generations to experience winter and to be able to do what I do." This is a letter signed by 200 athletes, by the way, so it's no small fry. And it really is an issue that is taking turning a lot of heads. So the Alps, just to put this into context for viewers and listeners, the Alps experienced record high temperatures over Christmas and New Year, 20.9 degrees Celsius in northwest Switzerland. So besides measures to reduce their own emissions, a lot of these resorts are planning ahead for a time when skiing is no longer viable. Even low altitude resorts as well in Europe, snow depth is shrinking by 3 to 4 centimetres every 10 years, which is a mad rate of disappearance. And then you've got the glaciers disappearing as well, which is not helping. 2017 studies saying the Alps could lose up to 70% of their snow cover by 2100. So this is an issue that's not going away anytime soon, Ger, but one I just wanted to raise on Around the World this morning. Finally, we're heading to Canada again, Toronto, Canada, and this is quite a lovely story because it had a happy ending. The Toronto Blue Jays manager, John Schneider, saving a woman's life after he saw her choking in a restaurant, the team announcing on social media.
A lovely story.
Well, it had a happy ending. You'll see the statement there from the Toronto Blue Jays. Manager John Schneider was out at lunch with his wife when a woman at another table was choking and couldn't breathe. Schneider rushed to her aid, performed the Heimlich manoeuvre and saved her. Just another day in the life, as they say in their statement. He's 43, a life-saving response. Big lad as well, 6'3". He says he learned the manoeuvre in school. This is what I wanted to bring this up for. So he says, "I learned it about 6th grade, hadn't thought about it since. So it was like, I think I remember how to do this. I'm a bigger guy, so I think that helped a little bit. But no, I hadn't thought about the Heimlich manoeuvre since grade 6. So both parties returned to their meals. His reward for saving her life was a free beer. So there's your beer for saving her life. He says he wasn't looking for a pat on the back. His wife, John Schneider's wife, said he was so calm reacting to the incident. So it happened in downtown Dunedin about 2 weeks ago. She said he gracefully gets up, doesn't panic. The way he held his cool, you would have thought he was managing a wildcard game. It was so graceful. Do you know the Heimlich manoeuvre?
I mean, I've seen it on TV. You put your hands under the lungs and you...
Something along those lines.
That's the physical, technical term.
So that is a very visceral and dynamic interpretation of what it is. Henry Heimlich. This is why I wanted to bring this up. So there's Henry Heimlich on the left of the photo there.
I would have said that guy was like 1800s.
Yeah. I know.
He's still alive.
No, he's not still alive.
Oh, but that would have been the best news of the morning.
Sorry.
That's a good news story. The man who invented the Heimlich manoeuvre, he's still alive.
This is what I wanted to bring this up for. Henry Heimlich was born in 1920 and died in 2016. So he only died 6 years ago, right?
Jesus.
So in 1974...
I think they would have made more of him when he was dying.
I know.
Like, here, lad, this guy's literally...
I didn't hear about this.
Anyway.
So in that photo, yes, he was old. He was 96 in that photograph. In 1974, he created this life-saving manoeuvre, and the American Medical Association gives it his name after Henry Heimlich. He was eating a steak on that day of that photograph at 96 in his final year in 2016 in the dining room of the Dupree House, which is a senior living community in Cincinnati, Ohio, where he was staying. And this woman next to him starts to choke.
Ah, no way.
And he says she had all the signs of it because, as I say, her lips were puffed out. She obviously wasn't breathing. 100 diners looking on. He stood up at 96 years of age, spins the victim around, launches into his namesake technique, places around, you described it yourself, what you have to do. He says he's demonstrated the manoeuvre many times throughout his career as a chest surgeon, but that was the first time he ever had to use it in a matter of life and death. At 96, himself only a few months away from his own death. Apparently it saves more than 50,000 lives in the US alone every year, the Heimlich manoeuvre. So a lovely end to the whole story. So the Toronto Blue Jays manager, the good news story, and Henry Heimlich, RIP, who performed the manoeuvre for the first time in his own final year. What a lovely story, Ger.
Again, justified the existence of the slot just at the end there. Well done.
There you go.
That's this week's.
Until next week.
Okay. A lot of reaction to a lot of the stuff that we've done so far this morning. Netflix should have been told to bugger off their 150 grand. 150 grand is peanuts. That one is from Adrian McGrath. We'll ask for the Tig Burn comparison that Pascal Jacob is looking for there, and then the beef between our South African followers who hate comment and those who obviously just like the top quality sports content that we provide, and then the Irish rugby fans is always a little bit of sunshine in our life. Imagine being that afraid of James Ryan. You wake up an hour early to post on Rubbish Talk on Irish Sports Broadcast, says HC. I don't know, are we Rubbish Talk? Or is the poor man's Evan Etzebeth crack about James Ryan, is that the Rubbish Talk? I can't decide from our commenters if they think we're just the rubbish, and everybody's hate watching us, including the Irish Rugby fans.
Yeah, it's catchy name.
Rubbish Talk.
Welcome to Rubbish Talk. No, I like to think they're not slagging us. They're just having a little bit of beef with their South African friends.
Klopp lost his charisma, and I don't think he can recapture it at Liverpool, says Michael. And then somebody else making the point, wouldn't a strike be a great angle for a Six Nations Netflix series, says Harburn 6. I mean, that is 4D chess.
Yeah. Well, it's true. The conspiracy theorists will start to come out. They're like, oh yeah, so the year they start filming the golfers, Netflix, the Live breakaway happens. They start filming the Six Nations, and this Welsh strike happens. Formula 1 got away with most of the... Well, actually, Formula 1 had the disaster of Hamilton and Verstappen in Abu Dhabi, but, I mean, turns out Netflix have a curse. So maybe don't. And sorry, the money, you mentioned the 150,000, it's nowhere near enough.
And look, maybe if it's successful, they'll get more in the second season. And it's really about growing the game and making money for Netflix, who are like a bigger corporation than, anything else that's out there at the moment. So I don't know, it's an interesting... it is an interesting thing. The other side of this is that apparently the new Drive to Survive is quite good. I haven't seen it, but I know some people who have seen advanced copies, and they're actually they think it is still good. But the response to the golf one has been mediocre, and the response to the tennis one has been mediocre. So we'll see about the rugby. But everybody's like, oh, we need a Drive to Survive for GA. We need it for swimming. We need it for... And it turns out that there's that demand for that stuff is not that elastic. Some sports just aren't that interesting.
But flying the wall stuff in GA is very interesting. Like we saw it with the Year Till Sunday. That stuff is unbelievable.
I mean, what's rare is wonderful. That was 1998.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been... so Ross Common did something with AIB. I actually didn't see it in the end, but maybe there's room for more.
Yeah, the year they won Connacht, wasn't it? As well. So, it doesn't always turn into a curse. Galway win the All-Ireland in 98 when it happens as well. Maybe the trick is...
It really isn't a curse.
No, it's not a curse. Get the filming crews in.
Only Mayo were cursed. And sure, look, it's over now.
So. You can always film, and then, sure, if you have a terrible year or something goes drastically wrong, just don't release the footage. Don't bother. Why would you bother? So, yeah. On the comment on Klopp, the maniacal smile, as you call it, after the third, fourth, fifth goals, really starts to annoy me. I was chatting to some Liverpool mates of mine as well, and it annoys them as well. Why? I know he does it, but why are you smiling?
Because it's not real. It's like, why are you laughing in times of crisis? Why are you crying when you're happy? I don't think... you can't be getting annoyed about someone's facial reactions.
Is it like the people laughing at funerals and stuff? Like, when you're supposed to not laugh, you just tend to laugh the most? So maybe that's what Klopp is doing here. Like, he knows he shouldn't be laughing because they're after conceding a fifth goal at home in a Champions League fixture against Real Madrid, but he does laugh. But look... It looked like an unbelievable atmosphere last night. I'm gonna be in Old Trafford tomorrow night for the Barcelona fixture. That's gonna be cracking. I know a lot of United fans are heading over as well, and set up nicely at 2-2. So I think it's gonna be a good atmosphere tomorrow night.
All right. Are you on?
Going.
Oh, right.
It's gonna be in Old Trafford.
Okay.
I think the Paul Scholes Champions League semi-final second leg in 08. I was listening to Andy Mitten on the Talk of the Devils podcast there recently. He was saying that was the greatest atmosphere there has been at Old Trafford this century since 2000, and they're expecting tomorrow night to be even better. So looking forward to being there.
All right, we have some breaking news this morning. It is 9:37 and we are given to understand that John O'Shea is going to be joining the Republic of Ireland coaching ticket. Obviously we've been looking for a replacement as that extra coaching role alongside Stephen Kenny and Keith Andrews. Recently Anthony Barry had been linked to a return, having left Belgium, but he's gone to Portugal. Barry was obviously replaced in the Irish staff by John Eustace, who was just there for a short window before he left to become the manager of Birmingham City, and then the job has been vacant since then. I think Stephen Rice, the chief analyst, had stepped up to fulfil some of those duties, but Stephen Kenny had been looking around for a replacement for Anthony Barry, and the news is breaking this morning here on OTB AM that we believe it's going to be John O'Shea who is coming in to join the coaching ticket. You're two Manchester United fans. Colin has rejoined us.
Mind you, yeah, that's exciting news. Very exciting news for John O'Shea, Manchester United legend, Republic of Ireland legend, of course. And like pulling up trumps in the coaching world since his retirement. I believe he's going to be staying with Stoke City. This is going to be a dual job, kind of like what Roy Keane used to do at Aston Villa and Ireland. And I know from I know one player involved at Stoke City in the youth setup. I know his family, and they speak extremely highly of John O'Shea as a coach, both in terms of his tactical knowledge and nuance, and also his man management skills. So he seems to have an equally big coaching career ahead of him as he did on the pitch. And finally, I think the Anthony Barry void could be filled here by a very, very promising coach that obviously we're biased about, but really seriously does look like he has a future. And you hear that from a Stoke player who has nothing to do with the Irish setup.
He's got an aura as well. Like, I think our current young players all know John O'Shea. They're like, well, this is the king of Gelsenkirchen. This is the guy who nutmegged Luis Figo, who scored that goal against Arsenal and didn't know how to celebrate. Like, he's a legend. So I think he did his UEFA Pro licence in December. So it's probably that kind of thing where you get the Pro licence done and straight away the FAI are like, well, you've ticked the boxes now, so come on in.
And again, I know a League of Ireland coach who did his licence with O'Shea, and again, couldn't speak more highly of his just passion and knowledge for football, as beyond the fact that he was a legend for club and country. This guy seriously knows the game, like in the style that, say, a Graham Potter would be full of knowledge and come to the game without much of a professional background himself. But O'Shea actually has both. So look, this is very exciting, right ahead of the France game as well. Trying their best, like everybody really wants this Stephen Kenny era to be a success, regardless of whether you want Kenny to stay in the job or not. And the fact that we have a coach of this quality coming on board, especially when Damien Duff left, that was a big void in Anthony Barry, and now we have a coach that everyone's getting excited about too, and the fact that he's passionately joining this setup is a great start to the year.
I was over at Reading in 2019 when O'Shea, that was his first year as a first team coach with Reading, and like they, similar to the Stoke story, they spoke in such positive terms about John O'Shea. They were like, no, this guy's brilliant. And that was his first year, I think, as a coach. So clearly he's cut his teeth under Jim Crawford at the 21s, cut his teeth at Reading and Stoke. He's ready. This is a big one.
I would love to see his coaching side in action, but if you're going to base on anything, it's the fact in his playing career, I think he played in every single position on the pitch, including in goal against Tottenham and White Hart Lane. So you're definitely learning as you're going. You're picking up knowledge.
You're saying he could teach Queevy and
at least a base knowledge of absolutely everything, and a jack of all trades, but also a master of a few, by the sounds of it.
Well,
and
it's exciting. And has worked under some very interesting managers and has seen managerial styles from every end of the spectrum. With John O'Shea, you were always hoping that he was going to get involved with the Ireland setup at some point, that his career was going to build to a point where something like this made sense. And so many of the players that we've seen get into management use their reputation to get a first team job, to get the managerial job straight away. John O'Shea hasn't done that. He's gone off and learned and taken his time and, gone down the divisions with his career, and has now seen what it's like to be in a world-class elite environment, Champions League winning level, to lower level football. And I think, he's going to have a much better understanding of what the requirements of the position are. I don't know. Obviously, it doesn't make a blind bit of difference where he comes from, but it's nice that an Irish legend is now part of that coaching ticket, and that we have links back all the way.
We'll obviously hear from David Meyler. David Meyler played alongside him at club level as well, so we'll get some insight as to what kind of person he is. But the fact that he's played under Alex Ferguson, and now he's involved in the coaching setup, I'm not getting too carried away, but that's a good sign. He's picked up some things you'd imagine from Fergie over the years.
I think it does matter where he comes from. It's reason to get excited about, because of this phenomenal career he had, but also the fact that, unlike, say, Stephen Gerrard and Frank Lampard, I'm not just picking on those two, he hasn't jumped straight into management. He's really learning the ropes from the start here, and he's done his work quietly so far. And for me, at the moment, this seems like a perfect progression to eventual management. And maybe he actually does just want to be a coach, and would see that progress in the next year. But exactly a month out before the Latvia friendly on the 22nd of March, and then 5 days before the France game, we're suddenly looking in a far better position. And I know this is just one appointment today, but if this works out well, this is good for the squad.
My crystal ball is that the manager at the 2030 World Cup, for which Ireland will undoubtedly qualify as one of 48 teams in USA, Mexico and Canada, John O'Shea will be our manager.
Well, I think, if you're thinking in terms of well-run organisations, Connacht have today appointed somebody from within. It means that handover is seamless. At some point in the future, there is now going to be somebody who will be an automatic candidate for the head coaching role or the manager's role or whatever the official title is whenever the Stephen Kenny era finishes. And I think this reflects really well on Stephen Kenny, because he knows that. Like when we were talking before about potential candidates to replace Kenny, you know, Chris Hughton's name will come up, and then the slew of English managers who might be available will come up, and everybody else. Like, there aren't a whole heap of qualified Irish candidates who are within the system. But John O'Shea's name was mentioned in dispatches, and so I think this reflects really well on Stephen Kenny, that he's willing to say, yeah, look, I understand that if I end up not being the manager, you're probably going to end up being the most likely candidate to replace me, but I have enough confidence in my ability, and I have enough confidence in your ability to help me to progress this team and get us to where we want to go. So I think it's positive from that perspective. I think like you can't ignore this, but John O'Shea has a lot of support from the Irish football public and also from pundits, right? Much harder to slag off an Ireland setup when you're like, you know, John O'Shea's in there and he's gone about this the right way. He's been a stand-up. He's been an absolutely stand-up guy throughout his entire career. There's nothing ever except anybody saying, great professional, great fella, you know, never forgot his roots, never forgot who he was, absolutely was humble, and at the same time, one of our best and most important players for the best part of a decade. Like, I think, you know, it's a really important, but like also not important as important as just how good he's going to be at the job, which obviously we don't know just yet. But I do think it's going to help galvanise Irish football through a difficult period, because this group, as everybody says, even Richard Dunn in the paper says, like, look, this group, I mean, we would not have fancied this even when we had the best team that we had.
Yeah, that's 100%. They like that Irish Euro 2012 squad. Like, a lot of them have gone into. You look at John O'Shea, Keith Andrews, John Walters. Like, a lot of them have gone. David Myler as well has been involved in Irish underage setups. So a lot of them are heading into.
And is involved.
And is like they're, a lot of them are going into coaching. I don't know if this is a trend of previous iterations of the Irish team, but it seems like a lot of that group have gone into coaching as opposed to media. They're all doing their little bits of media here and there as well, but it seems to be a lot of pro licenses and badges being done by that group, which is a good sign.
Yeah, well, O'Shea, look, he hit the ground running. He finished up his playing career at Reading and went straight into coaching there. I'd be really interested to hear what Michael O'Neill would have to say about his tenure at Stoke when he appointed him, and just to hear from other people. And I know we will over the coming days and weeks about just what type of kind of acumen he's actually bringing to the cause beyond the name John O'Shea. And I think that the person who's least interested in the name of John O'Shea is John O'Shea himself, and he actually really does want to get involved and progressing as a coach. So look, it's exciting, and it's a perfect build up to the match, which is exactly a month away.
Yeah, because I think there had been a long lingering kind of what's the story with this, so we got really high end coaches to come, and that's why they were leaving. It wasn't that they were leaving, obviously whatever happened with Duffer, which I still don't fully understand exactly what happened with Duffer, but again, Damien Duff, a galvanising figure, and then he gets replaced by Anthony Barry, who's still at Chelsea, right? And is also going to be with Portugal, so very high end. And then Eustace is so good that he gets a job straight away. And I think people were using this as a stick to beat Kenny with, he can't get his backroom team finalised. Like, well, I mean, that's because he keeps getting really good people. That's what happens. And he was able to attract them in the first place. So look, the culture war, hopefully this is like a little truce that we have now when it comes to the future of Irish football. And I think O'Shea is staking his reputation here to be part of this, and I think that's a good sign, and we wish him all the best. I'm excited about it.
You'll have to update his LinkedIn. Right here I have John O'Shea, first team coach, Stoke City Football Club. Well, you can add another one now.
Change it up.
Yeah.
So we of course have reached out to the FAI for confirmation of this, but our information is well sourced at this point, that we expect John O'Shea to be linking up as the new coach with the Republic of Ireland senior national team.
In fact, that's France coming up as well. Like the 2009 memories, John O'Shea will remember. We all know what happened, and he'll want his revenge.
Did miss a sitter against France, of course. Is that what you were talking about?
No, we'll not talk about that. Forget about it.
A chance to exercise some demons, I believe they call it in sporting cliche world. Right, that's the breaking news this morning, that we expect John O'Shea to be ratified as a member of the backroom team for Stephen Kenny. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. On tomorrow's show, obviously Johnny Ward is going to be in to replace you, because you're off at in Wolverhampton as well.
Oh,
the glamour of Wolverhampton.
Pretty pretty sad place, I'd imagine. No, I'm looking forward to it. Heading to the snooker as well, the Players' Championship on Friday. Hopefully do a couple of interviews maybe. But yeah, Old Trafford's where it's at tomorrow night.
We'll have Graham Hunter, further build up to the Italy game, plus much more besides. Right now, first, Kathleen is speaking with Megan Connolly. We played you a clip of this earlier. Here's Kathleen McNamee talking in the glorious surrounds of Marbella to Megan Connolly, and we'll bring you a bit of slight tangent as well.
So you obviously just had a training session. How did that go?
Yeah, good thinking. Yeah, obviously match day -1 before we play China, another test. Yeah, I'm good. I mean, we're trying things. You know, we had a game last week against Germany, a good test for everyone, and I think we're just trying to improve game by game and just prepare as best we can come July. So tomorrow's another test for us.
It is quite a long camp to be in, and I suppose it's good that you do have the 2 games. How have you found this is your first one back?
Since everything, yeah.
So how have you found it?
Well, I have enjoyed it. Yeah, obviously it's an honour every time you're in. So I'm really glad to be back in with the team, just training away and playing these games. It seems like it was forever since I was back in, because obviously there was still 2 games after and then another camp. But no, really happy to be back in with everyone.
And what was the recovery process like for you?
To be fair, it was about 10 weeks, because obviously with the initial injury it was kind of in the hospital for a few days and then home just in bed for, you know, a week or 2, just like calling on my mum like to help me. But after that, to be fair, it was just a case of rest. It was one of those injuries where it was just like a bone and obviously the organ, but everything was just rest. So come like 6 weeks I could build up again, and then obviously come the 10th week I got cleared. So it was long, but it was one of those ones I just accepted because I couldn't control it, with like a bone injury and the kidney.
Did you realise when you were playing how serious it was? Like, were you in pain or was the adrenaline just kind of carrying you?
To be fair, when it initially happened, I was like, I'd never been so out of breath. I was like, so I just lied there for a bit. Obviously, when I watched it back, I was like, goodness, I was there for a bit. But yeah, I think as the game went on, the adrenaline, I felt it at half time, but obviously I didn't think ribs and kidney and all that stuff. And once the second half started, just the adrenaline, you know, because I didn't think about it once. And even after the game, the celebrations was like dancing around, and I'll see my family in the stand and like dancing and stuff. But I think as soon as that like went away, like in the change room, I knew like something was up. And then obviously I had like blood and stuff, so it just went after that. And then I was in the hospital the next night, like staying over a nice little hotel.
And so then I presume you said it was kind of okay that you just accepted the 10 weeks and that's what you had to do, but obviously the Scotland game was in the middle of that. Was there a part of you that could kind of set everything aside and be like, well, I get to be with my family and I know that I'm coming back and I have a chance of making a World Cup?
Absolutely. It was one of those ones I accepted quite quick, because it was a bone and an organ that I couldn't, you know, and we had won the game, so it was worth it, you know, and we had got to that position. I think it was a lot easier to just accept it, especially the campaign we had. I think it was something to be really proud of, and I think obviously the last 2 games, the game before the Scotland one, to secure that if we actually beat Scotland and results went the way that we would have went. But yeah, I think when I was at home, because that was about the 6-week kind of mark for me, so I had a scan the next day, so I was like, right, I'm just going to spend it with my family, which was tough because, like, you know, emotions are everywhere. My dad was watching it, everyone's watching it, but honestly it was like, I wouldn't change it. Like, experience it with my family who have been there throughout everything, and just seeing their reactions as well was nice. I know that was my brother. I didn't know he was doing it. It was like, honestly, since Amber scored, it was the longest time ever, and I was just sitting on the edge of the seat, just like, and then you can hear my dad like cheering in the background, like, we're going to a World Cup. So yeah, I think it was just like, everyone was just so proud.
It felt like the rest of the game went really slowly, and then the minute Amber scored, it was like, or really fast, and then the minute Amber scored, it was going really slowly, and I was like, this feels longer than the entire time.
Honestly, yeah, and credit to Amber. I mean, she only came on, you know, and it just goes to show like the player she is. You know, she took her opportunity and she done that.
It also shows the depth in the squad.
Exactly, you know, you could trust anyone, and obviously she took that opportunity and got us to a World Cup.
And has that sunk in with you yet, that you are like possibly going to be on a plane to Australia?
I think definitely this camp, because obviously I hadn't been in, so I think coming in, having the meetings about what could be in the next few months, like what we might have in place and everything, and it kind of starts to feel a bit real, like, right, okay, we're preparing for a World Cup, and you're always thinking of that first game against Australia in the back of your head. You're thinking what could be a sellout crowd, but obviously what we always prepare for is just 11v11, what Vera always tells us, but that is what you're dreaming for, that is what you want to be in, and everyone is the same, and everyone's pushing for that place on the plane over there.
And in the next couple of months, so we have China tomorrow, and then there's we have African opponents coming up, and then we have the European opponents coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really getting all the different continental styles of football.
Yeah.
Is there anyone in particular that you're looking forward to playing against, or you're interested about learning more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously Zambia will be really interesting. We've never played a team like that, and obviously it'll prepare us really good for the World Cup. Same with France. I've never played France senior level, so to have the opportunity to maybe play them is amazing. But to be fair, again, credit to Vera and the staff. They're getting games to prepare us the best. Obviously having Germany last week, China now, Zambia, France, and obviously we have an April camp. We don't know who yet, but I'm sure they're working to get more teams.
And you're welcome along. Slight Tangent is coming at you for the second week in a row. These are exciting times. To my left, we have Mick McCarthy. Hello.
Hello.
Arthur O'D, good evening.
How's things, Joe?
Will O'Callaghan, hello to you.
You are setting very high standards by saying, 2 weeks in a row. Maybe it'll be 3.
It's a run. Will there be a three-peat? That's the question.
It's a streak at this stage, yeah.
I'm away next week. Just so you're aware.
Cold water on it already.
Punctured a certain momentum.
I have a plan.
Oh.
It's a cunning plan.
Okay.
Ooh. It may or may not involve Slight Tangent. We'll see.
I'll start with emails. So.
Slight Tangent at offtheball.com.
Yes, indeed.
The best of the best, I would say, of emails that we get into the entire station.
There's a high quality of correspondence. If you can judge a person by their friends, you can judge a slot by its correspondence.
Yes, absolutely.
And we've a lot of people with too much time on their hands.
You say correspondence. I'll keep it to the emails. We've wider correspondence that love y'all.
Slight Tangents at offtheball.com. So, not a huge amount of emails to get through this evening. We picked out the ones that caught our eye. Hi, lads. I think this segment is the best show that you make. Keep up the great work. That's not the reason we picked
That's
this
why I
segment.
call it
the key to get on.
I have 2 unrelated topics for you to discuss. Item number 1. What do you think when a pundit describes a rugby player, especially a forward, as, quote unquote, a great footballer? It drives me up the wall every time I hear it. I'll show a slight bit of tolerance towards a back who regularly kicks the ball being described as a great footballer, maybe a Johnny Sexton or Ross Byrne or James Lowe, but certainly not a forward. What's wrong with just saying he's a great rugby player?
So these are the high quality emails that we've deciphered.
What about some of the high quality kicks we've seen from forwards? I'm thinking of Keith Wood kicking a drop goal here.
It's 20
Tyke
years
Byrne. Yeah, but Tyke Byrne I know, we can cling on to it though. Tyke Byrne had a really good kick through back in the November internationals. Remember the one that Tyke Furlong kicked into the backfield where he just mullied it up in the air? But
it's nothing to do with kicking though. It's because the game is called rugby football, and the football, the term football, isn't owned by soccer. Mm-hmm. It's the sport is a type of football.
Like when
I just wanted to defend the odd time that forwards kick the ball here.
It's an enjoyable thing.
When Tyke Furlong shows those lovely hands, the commentator may say, "Oh, he's a great footballer."
Yeah. But there's in the Southern Hemisphere, well, in Australia and New Zealand anyway, you would regularly hear them describe it as footy. The Australian captain in November, really anyone's trying to play footy here, to the ref. That was a bit more New Zealandy accent, wasn't it, as well? You know when I put myself out there,
fair play, you went for it.
Why have I got Matt Williams in my head every time I hear the word footy as well?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, they call it that in Australia.
So do you disagree with our emailer here?
Yeah, I just don't think that. I think rugby is entitled to call itself football, certainly as NFL. And if you become a rugby player, you can be, if you have a bit of skill, you're a good footballer. It's okay.
Rugby football doesn't work though. It's just rugby.
Yeah, unless you're Bill McLaren. Bill McLaren would call it rugby football in a way that would make you feel emotional.
Yeah.
Well, given that they both come from the same game, essentially, they're codified differently, football and rugby. The fact they've got a common starting point means it's more than fine to call it football. It does obviously complicate it for us here, where we call football exclusively football. But then again, we call Gaelic football, where primarily you hand pass football as well.
Oh.
Let's not get back into this. We've had 24 hours of this.
So our official Slight Tangent response to Brian, and thank you for the email, Brian, is we're entitled to say he's a great footballer when we're talking about rugby players, and it doesn't have to be a kicking of the ball.
I'm waiting for the contrarian.
No. I know it's a bit of a breaking a kind of a golden rule. I think nothing about this.
That's fine.
I have no say whatsoever.
Listen,
important email to start.
That's the selling point of this slot. Point 2, Brian continues. What do you think of the general public's reaction would be if Ireland got to or won the Rugby World Cup? Would it reach the same levels as Italia 90? Would the celebration reach similar levels across the entire country? Or would it be very promoted in the corporate world and celebrated in the big rugby areas, but less so on the ground in non-traditional rugby areas? Do the hardcore GAA and soccer fans get behind them or stay indifferent? Thanks, kind regards, Brian.
I don't think it's anything like Italia 90. I wasn't there, but from what you gather, I don't think it'd be anything even close to that.
No. And that will happen. But I wonder to the extent as to which it will happen, because I feel there's an ingrained conversation and decision that's already been made about the Irish rugby team because we've been having this culture war for so long, in a way that, like, if a sport that you didn't care about, like, take for example when the hockey team made the World Cup final, right? That was an incredible achievement and something that I think the whole country got behind in a really kind of natural, organic way, and people were truly delighted with that journey and went along with it, and then didn't care about hockey again a few weeks later, in fairness, the general public. I think with rugby it's so much bigger in our mind already that it's like it will naturally be a bigger thing than that, but it also probably has less room to bring people along that were on the outside that didn't care in the first place, because people have already made their decision on the sport and the culture around rugby.
I think those who would be against the idea of the Irish rugby team doing well would be unlikely to be swayed by a victory in a quarter-final or a semi-final in the World Cup, where then automatically they become rugby fans for the World Cup final. I think they're the type of people who would criticise a marketing campaign like this is rugby country, or they hate the fact that there's a whole lot of coverage about the Leinster Schools Cup in the broadsheets during the year. That fan is unlikely, I think, to get on the bandwagon to get behind the rugby team in the same way that, say, the Olympics draws people out every 4 years to get behind the rowers, to get behind Kelly Harrington. The fact as well that because it was the first World Cup in Italia 90 probably helped with the bandwagonism of it a little bit as well, that the Irish team...
That would happen again. Qualified. Something similar to it anyway. If we got to a semi-final or something like that in the Football World Cup, I think the country would go
with the rugby team, there's a narrative that it's like, this is a team who do quite well in Six Nations, and then they get to a World Cup and usually it falls flat around the quarter-final. It's not that same kind of, I guess, journey into the unknown that it would have been with the football team in 88 and 90.
What do you think?
You can read a lot into the premise of the question.
OTB AM with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.